Hello, everybody, and welcome. It is Wednesday, and tonight is D&D night. Of course, you may be familiar with the D&D Megastream that we've been running every Wednesday night, but this Wednesday night is special because after a lot of patience on behalf of these wonderful people that you see on screen and a lot of enthusiastic waiting and a far too long hiatus, we're back with our actual play. Tonight's especially special because we're going to do a full round table and ask anything. Feel free to ask myself or the cast anything you want to know about the story we're about to jump into. And we're going to do a full story recap talking about the characters, where we are in the story thus far, how it all started before next Wednesday we come back in with the first session of season 2. But first, let's roll that intro. Oh, and I screwed up my hotkeys. It should go like this. Roll that intro. And none of my hotkeys want to work tonight, but that's okay. Empot, welcome. How's it going? Skarshack, welcome back to the show. My name is Brad, a.k.a. Baz, one half of the Baz and Bigley dynamic duo. But most importantly, Wednesday night, I'm your DM here on either the D&D Megastream, but tonight we're introducing something extra special to all of us. That's right. Our actual play Dungeons & Dragons long-running campaign is coming back into session. And to assist or to really make up the backbone of what that is are these wonderful folks around me. We're going to start in clockwise fashion. That's right. You know it's coming, Nikki. We're going to say hello to Nikki, a.k.a. Nerdy Chicken. Say hello. How you doing?
I'm doing so good, especially since you picked me first.
Of course.
You know I love it.
I know you do. That's why I do that to you.
Okay. So yeah, I'm doing good. I'm so happy to be back. So happy to be back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to see all your shiny faces.
Yes. The shiny
That's
in the good
all.
way. Fantastic. Continuing around the circle, we'll say hello to Ryan, aka at Dads and Dragons.
Hey, I'm Ryan. I am the host and the DM for a podcast that I play with my kids, where I teach them how to play D&D, and they teach me how to go crazy. It's we have a lot of fun, and but I'm also here playing Drogon Freeforged, the dwarven cleric of Doug Marin.
Yes, indeed. We're going to hear a lot more about Drogon, about all those relationships too as we go along. But before we get there, let's say hello to Angela, a.k.a. Pleasant Doom. Hello, Angela.
Hi! Long time no see.
Too long.
Yeah, I
My
am
fault.
Angela. It is. I blame you entirely.
I'll take it.
I don't actually.
Oh wow.
I don't actually. But I am Angela at Pleasant Doom on the Twitter sphere. I am also one of the hosts of Dungeons, Dinings, and Dorks, where we talk about geekery and such and food because geeks gotta eat.
That's right.
I actually did totally steal that from you, Brad.
I know, that's all right. I give it to you with honor. It's all yours. Love. All right, let's round out the pack with Dustin, none other than at Just Drawn Radio.
Of course, welcome back, and here we go again. I am, of course, Dustin. I am playing a tiefling gunslinger artificer named Muse. I also run a comic review show called Just Drawn That Way, and I am the writer of a radio drama called The Graveyard Tapes about the adventures of Finn Valentine, a supernatural PI.
Wunderbar. Thank you very much. Yes, a stacked table filled with creative minds, and an open, fearless adventurers, and that is really what's gone into the great recipe of making
Good
everything
Lord.
great that we've done today. What, Nikki, too much?
I just realized I never mentioned my character.
No, not yet, not yet, but that's all right. We're going to go
I
around and
didn't
do
say
exactly
anything.
that.
I didn't say anything. I was so shocked at being chosen first that I was like, oh, right, I'm supposed to say stuff.
That's all right.
Hi.
We are our own characters first, really, and I think little can really compare to that. So I'm going to let's get some fantasy appropriate music going. Actually, no, I'm going to hold off on that. We're going to do because I just realized I got to replace all that stuff. Note to self: replace fantasy music before next game or first game, really. By that logic, here we go. Let's get something chill going on here. Here we are. Yes, because I got to have some backdrop. There we go. Our story began in the Hillsfar region that you can see up on your screen right now, and it was the combination of some serendipitous leave takings and some equally serendipitous meetings on the road to adventure. But before we go in there, I'm going to do the same round table. This time we'll cut Nikki some slack. We'll go backwards. And I'd like to ask you guys to introduce your character name, a little bit about them, a description of what people would see the first time they view your character, and give us a little bit of backstory that you're comfortable sharing before the story begins. So let's start with Just Drawn Radio, aka Dustin.
Of course. I am playing Muse, a former bandit by the name of Chiron. He is a tiefling artificer. First view people would see of him, he'd be in he'd have a blood red scarf draped around his neck. He also has a gun, a holster with his weapon called the Last Word. It's the one thing that he's treasured above everything else. Also now he's got a mechanical cat known as Freya that's perched on his shoulder as well. His history is he, used to not be the most upstanding person in the world, and this resulted in him heading to a workshop to rob the place and promptly getting laid out by a woman by the name of Lorelei, who at first didn't have a whole lot of love for Muse, but he was able to talk himself out of trouble and eventually earned a position working for her. A couple of years had passed. He'd come into his own as an artificer. One day he came back to the shop, found it was destroyed. The only thing remaining was the Last Word, and he took the weapon and decided he was going to go out and figure out what happened to Lorelei, and that's where he ended up.
And thusly hit the road. Perfect. Did you give us a visual description?
Yes, of course, tiefling. Tiefling, red skin. Both of his horns have been broken through inopportune moments, bar fights, and one headbutt against a Goliath that he thought was a better idea at the time than it turned out to be. Patchwork leather armor, his blood red scarf, and various knickknacks attached to him, as well as a couple of mechanical creatures that seem to always crawl out of his pack, even if he's not intending on them to.
Nice. His entourage, if you will. Clockwork entourage. That's awesome. We've learned a lot about Muse and Muse's backstories as the story has progressed. As we go through the sessional logs and the session notes and what has happened in the story thus far, we can explore that a little bit more tonight. Of course, gang, everything you've seen totally unscripted. This is the first time we've really gotten together for a while, so we're just rolling through and getting caught up. It's a great opportunity for you to ask any questions you have about the story. By the way, we will keep an eye on chat tonight. As you guys who know the story previously, when we're in session, we don't take questions because obviously we're locked in the narrative. We always have a break before about halfway through and then at the end of the stream. But tonight it's all open forum. It's all AMA. So ask anything that you like, whether it's about the characters, the story, how we're doing, what we're doing, what's coming up next. Anything goes. I mean, within reason, okay? Fair good. Welcome back. Good to see you. Ethan, welcome. Mighty Lights. What's up, Ethan? Welcome. Good to see you. Good to see you. You have the same headset as Ampot, Pleasant. Did you know that?
I did not know that until I was looking at the chat.
Because we've also gamed quite a bit together. We'll talk a little bit about that later. I don't want to digress, but I do want to buy a little bit of time. Dr. Farragut, our first question of the night, eagerly wants to know what is the cat's name, and I assume that's yours, Dustin. There you go. Answer him in real time. That's the magic of Twitch.
Fair enough.
It's not
the cat's name is
ICQ.
Pixel.
Pixel. Oh, that's
ICQ.
right.
Oh my god, that's
I know.
a throwback.
I wanted to throw
my-
that to
Good
see
name.
which of us would react to that.
name.
Wow.
Oh.
Wow. That's old.
Hey, thanks for singing on your follow. Sorry, good thing at the time is still running a Spider-Man group of 10K members. Nice. I would share the stream there. Oh, well, hey, appreciate the thought, Abe. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Just so you know, we're going roundtable with the cast of our actual play podcast. We concluded season 1 last year. How crazy is that? It was last year we finished season 1. We've taken a long hiatus. Today we're getting to know everybody. We're going to recap the story, and you can ask the cast anything that you like. So with that, let's move on around the table. Pleasant Doom, tell us a little bit about your character, visual description, a little bit of backstory before you reached point 1 in session 1 in the first season.
Well, I play a Kenku wild magic sorcerer named Glitter Bomb. She is very uniquely colored in a world where the Kenku typically are browns and grays and blacks and just dull drab colors. She is a flurry of blue and pink and a little bit of green, a little bit of yellow, and her beak is just very vibrant purple, as are her arms and hands, and also her legs and feet. Just full of feathers, and kind of looks out at the world with a little bit of wonder. She is typically dressed in ill-fitting, poorly maintained clothing, and also hangs out with Cloud most of the time. It's the person she knows best. We haven't really gotten to know much of Glitter Bomb's backstory yet, because she's still figuring out how to speak common for herself. But she is known to hang out with Cloud, and has been seen roaming through some cities and kind of grabbing scraps of food to hide in her pockets, and really doesn't understand money very well.
It's one of her more endearing qualities, and Cloud has a little bit of that too. We're gonna get to in just a second. Maybe she's learning some of those features from Cloud. I don't know if
Maybe
good
Cloud's
financial
been teaching her.
management is on that list. Yeah, but Cloud is, or Glitter Bomb has had some really great moments, especially utilizing that wild magic feature, which always seems to just come in at the right time. In the right kind of ways, and so far she has not managed to blow up the party, which is always a plus, I guess, depending on what side of the screen the DM screen you're sitting on. So, yes, amazing. So with that, let's continue around. Let's talk about your character, Ryan, aka Dads and Dragons.
Thanks. Yeah, so I play Drogon. Drogon's a dwarf who you'll find him in his forge most of the time. He left the forges of the gold dwarfs down in the south and has been wandering around trying to find out where he fits in, and not having much luck so far. And along the way he came across the Order of Doug Marin, and they took him in, and he's been looking at finding that new knowledge and that great creation that he's trying to make and forge the one thing that he'll be known for in his life, and he's searching for that right now. Yeah, you'll find that he often forgets to take his blacksmith's apron off as he wades into battle, and but otherwise he's a good guy, and he's just looking out for people. He has got a soft spot for people that have been a little bit disenfranchised in the past, but also is a little untrusting of other people in authority and stuff too sometimes. So
Right, so you found that stability in the group in travels, I think, and we're gonna get a little bit more of that as well. Did you talk about a visual representation of Drogon?
Yeah, Drogon's got typical dwarven beard, but singed from being over the forge all the time, and so it's got a little of black and curled ends from being burnt a little bit. Wears his hair back, carries a giant hammer and a big pouch with a giant book in it that he keeps notes and things like that he's learning in.
Nice.
Cleric wise, he's not very priestly in appearance, but that's not to be expected with people who are following Doug Marin in this case.
And the perpetual learning, and I love like the adherence to the forge and how his faith comes into his craft as well, and we've gotten to experience that in the show in some really interesting ways. I want to go a little bit deeper into that, but first let's continue around the table and meet your character, Nikki, aka Chickenly Nerd.
Okay, so Cloud. She's just adorable, let's face it.
Agreed.
No, she's got the markings of a Bengal tiger. She wears like a white tabard, so her arms are bared. She's got it like a very plain belt that holds it all together, and it goes down to about her knees. It's really, if you looked at it closely, you'd see that it's really tattered and worn, but she keeps it as clean as she can. Like it's clearly washed a lot. I guess the most notable thing would be that both of her ears are pierced down the outside, 8 rings on each side. She actually has, I don't think I've ever really described her to you guys. She actually has like gems or something embedded in her teeth. She's got a metal collar around her neck with a few links of chain that hang off of it, and no clear way of how this could possibly come off. And it's tight. It's eating away at there's no fur underneath where the collar is. She carries with her a short sword and a backpack, and that's about. She also has a really cool little key, a skeleton key that hangs around her neck now that she would cut your arm off if you tried to take it from her. And she's gonna have this really awesome like armband that's in the shape of a snake, and I don't know anything about that yet.
That's right, because the DM owes you details. That's why we're doing an AMA and a story refresh today to buy me another week to get all that sorted out, as well as some little tech gremlins, which fortunately we haven't really experienced so far tonight, knock on wood. But we're still getting ready to ramp up. We have some new things going on with the overlay and some other things we want to do to make sure that the focus is on the story and the wonderful people telling it, but also that we have some visual representation. So what you see below me is the area or the region where most of our story is taking place right now. And this is in a place called Cormanthor, or the Cormanthor Forest, on a continent called Toril in the land of the Forgotten Realms. So this is one of the most popular campaign settings in Dungeons and Dragons, I would say full stop, particularly in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. So this is where our story really unfolds. We're going to get into that as well in just a moment. So like I said, I have the luxury and pleasure of being the DM for this game. A lot of what you see began with something that was inspired by a pre-published work, but it's since taken on a life of its own. What you'll see in the second season is a lot of rewriting, a lot of building around narrative, because we have these great rich backstories of these characters and the relationships that have developed, and we really want to showcase that for the remainder of the campaign. So that's what you're going to see there. It's highly narrative, highly engaging. We have really great combat sequences, but I think it's no great secret that all of us really love to get into the story and draw you in as a listener to that storied experience. First of all, thank you, Antbot, for liking the stream. Steph, thanks for liking the stream. The support at home, hell yeah. Yeah, we're going to keep going. And like I said, today, anything goes. So if you have any questions, by all means, don't hesitate to ask. Don't be shy. We'd love to answer them, but we're going to continue with the storied walkthrough. Now, in the normal course of the show, we do those AMA, or we acknowledge like chat and the feedback at the beginning of the show and at the end, because when we're in the session, we want to make sure that we're dialed in to that narrative, that we're all connected to it, to give the best form of entertainment that we know how to really do that story justice. So like I said, I'm Brad, I'm the DM, that's my character. I'm like all the other people and sometimes more NPCs that I want to play, including one that you'll meet as we go through, that I really owe to you guys for bringing this character into the story. It was totally that's really, I think, what represents the beauty of this game, is that anything can happen. It's really at the behest of the characters, the players, and how you want to interact with that world. And we have had the opportunity to bring one of those NPCs into a real, like, living party member, honestly, at least for the first season. We'll see where that goes when we talk about downtime at the end of the show tonight. So with that, let's do a quick recap of the story, and we'll go session by session, just in quick bullet points. What I'll do is I'll read the recap of the beginning of each session, which really kind of sums up what happened the session before, and I do this before every single show, bringing together what effectively happened in the last session. But first, on the lonely road to the Cormanthor, through the Cormanthor, to a small town called Dampshire, by virtue of their own reasons, these players have made their way into or around the woodlands towards Dampshire. So let me, I'll just pick at random based on where the story was and how it started. Drogon, tell me how Drogon wound up in Dampshire and what he's doing these first moments, the prologue, we'll say.
Drogon wound up there as just the next stop on places to go. He often settled down and tried to settle down in a few places and would end up just getting tired of it, or just getting angry at the people there. And Dampshire was just the next place where he ended up. He'd been there for probably a few months, half a year, maybe a year at tops, and had set up shop and was doing a lot of work with the local sorry about that.
That's all right.
Just with the local
I
town
can't
guard.
handle the suspense.
I'm like,
Local what, man?
No.
Say it!
We need to know local what? Crime syndicate, drug lords.
Yes. No. Yes. What? Just with the local town guard,
Wait a
fixing
minute,
armor
that's
up
my
and making weapons form and stuff.
Right, right.
And had gotten to know the captain of the guard a bit. And so when the story kicks off, it's early morning and he's just working in his forge and trying to get things going. I imagine he's probably picked up an apprentice by now, and somebody he's training to kind of take over for him. But in the meantime, just working away, trying to keep his head down. I think in my mind, he had gotten kind of run out. What's the town next to Dampshire? There's one that's close by that's run all by humans.
That is Hillsfar, yeah, the capital city.
That's
the walled
Hillsfar,
city of
right?
Hillsfar.
Yeah. And so in my mind, he had ended up at Hillsfar, and was not very welcomed there.
Clearly
and
not particularly ideal for a non-human in this case. Yeah. Now, I want to jump in really quickly because he does have an apprentice. So Drogon was very quickly endeared to the people of Dampshire for the finery and exquisite dwarven craft that he became known for. Like you said, he started working on crafting and repairs for the town's militia in Dampshire. But it's interesting. Hello, Sila and Arendar. I just want to call this out because Sila Lodi has just jumped in. And actually, the name of your apprentice is Sila in this game. And I will say that this game started a year ago before we ever met Sila. So there you go, Sila. Before you ever joined us in this community, you were immortalized in the annals of this story because Drogon's apprentice is named Sila. Sila is actually the apprentice metalsmith in Dampshire, but she's fairly green, right? So when Drogon came along, there was some sort of a mentor relationship that evolved there. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Hey, Sila. Thanks for watching.
You're now
you're in the story now.
You were pre-immortalized as an NPC before we had met because I knew
right.
we would eventually meet you, and I'd want to do you that justice. So, there you go. So Sila is actually the name of that apprentice, and that's going to be important because in the last going off when you return to Dampshire, she's the one who's kind of running her head off trying to keep things afloat. while her mentor is off adventuring and doing awesome things, which is kind of token heroic behavior, I think. As things
Yeah,
go.
we'll come back to the shop and
That's right.
Drogon turns into a Tony Stark kind of character
Yeah,
here.
yeah, totally. He's gonna pepper Potts Silo for sure. CEO of the damn Shire Forge. Congratulations.
Have fun running the forge.
Yeah, good luck with that. While he's off to a
So-
yacht somewhere in the mid-Atlantic.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. So let's continue with that great little kind of setup for how Drogon entered the story before our first session began. Let's continue with that because in and around the same time, Muse had made his way to Dampshire and had actually spent the better part of a week in the town as well. Muse,
Muse, of course, had wandered to Dampshire through much less honorable or auspicious reasons. He was mostly following up on leads to see if he'd heard anything about a gunsmith that had passed through, and unfortunately it was a dead end. So well, at that point Muse decided, you know what, the bar is nice, I'm going to hang around here for a little bit, enjoy the scenery a little bit, and then move on. And of course he didn't.
that's right. He stuck around. What reason would Muse have to stick around there in the beginning?
In the beginning, of course, it was an interesting little town. Thankfully, nobody else had actually heard of the bandit known as Chiron or the Bloodscarves, so less of a chance of him getting run out of town to start. And then, of course, the initial incident that had gotten his attention, and deciding that he wasn't going to watch people. He wasn't going to watch a couple of people going off to pick a fight if he could get involved as well.
Mm-hmm. Right. There's always this it's like honor amongst thieves, but it goes deeper than the thief-like honor for Muse, I think. Really quickly, I want to say hello and thank you, Josh, for helping us get the word out with the host. Welcome back. Good to see you. I know we are all thrilled to be back at the table, the virtual table now, bringing D&D back into the fold. Finally, this is the beginning of something truly exciting as we continue just doing our quick AMA. This is just cast interview and story recap tonight, so feel free to ask any questions you have about the story of the characters as we go through. Muse, I'll hand it back over to you. Sorry, yeah. So he had found his station in Dampshire, maybe amidst a brief moment of peace or quiet that he's not necessarily used to. Anything else about like why he was here and where he may have been going or thought he was going that you want to share? And I know it's mysterious, so you don't have to.
Muse had heard rumors of a couple of Bloodscarves at a few towns over.
Mm-hmm.
He figured that would be his next place he would check out, just in case some of his old crew may have had something to do with Lorelai's disappearance. And his reasonings for helping out is, well, as you said, there's honor among thieves. He's not going to steal from somebody. He's not going to steal from somebody who can barely feed themselves. He'd rather pick on someone who deserves it.
Right. And he's done a good job of both protecting his friends, new and old, and using that sordid past to really kind of. It seemed to me like where I'm sitting as a DM, just kind of watching that story unfold, that he's almost like it's almost like he's making penance for that past with his choices that lead him into the future, this new future. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would agree. Muse. That's why Muse also had abandoned his name as Chiron. Is he figures it's about he wants to pay up, and he's going to go forward and try and inspire and help people now. So.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Outside of Dampshire, so as we know now, Muse and Drogon began their story in the sleepy town of Dampshire, in this small town with just a single basic civilian militia, other kind of things that were growing or evolving before any of this happened. Meanwhile, in the outskirts of town, two figures who are less, we'll say, familiar with civilized life in the Forgotten Realms. Let's start with Cloud.
Yeah, so let's just say I don't want to give too much away, but Cloud is somewhat acquainted with Elsfar. You know, not just say her experience there wasn't so great. She's been in the woods in Cormanthor for I think 2 years, maybe, wandering, learning the lay of the land, figuring things out, just trying to get by, just chasing birds and climbing trees and surviving, but also little by little hanging out with I I think she would see as her little sister. Little sister,
Yeah,
would
yeah.
you say?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So, well, that's how Cloud sees it anyway. Regardless of what your age is, she sees you as a little sister and has learned love from being with you and acceptance and comfort and maybe home.
Mhm.
And she's also kind of wandered up to Damshire quite a few times and met Gildas and the guards of the town,
Mhm.
and they have definitely tried to uh, help her out by leaving little treats for her, trying to get her to come into the town a little bit more. And I think genuinely they just want to look after her. And so that's how she finds her way into all this when she finds out, well, this is very upset and something's really wrong. That's she comes in.
Awesome. And you have mentioned that there is a relationship budding there in those borderlands outside of Damshire, albeit a new one with Pleasant Doom. With Glitterbomb, played by Pleasant Doom, our resident Kenku, the
Isn't
multicolored.
it the same? I think they're the same
Yeah,
person.
I do too. I think that's why I trip on that one, because I feel like there's a lot of Glitterbomb in Pleasant Doom.
I
But
think so.
I think that's natural again like this. I think the beauty of it is that we bring part of ourselves into these characters. I won't make any assumptions about where the line is drawn or otherwise. But I don't know how many states or provinces Dustin is wanted in for previous criminal dealings, but I do believe he's on the
Countries,
path to
how many
nobility.
countries?
Countries, yeah, that's right. Worldwide, baby. Dustin's not defined or confined by borders and man-made lines.
I'm
So
on 5 continents.
Is the Canadian Mr. Worldwide.
Mr. Worldwide, indeed. But speaking of which, let's go to your involvement in this Glitterbomb and how it all started for you. What brought you up to these moments just before our first session took place?
Well, Glitterbomb is clearly far from home. There's not a whole lot of Kenku in the area. She's been spending a lot of time trying to figure out the words of common for herself, and probably started improving after she started tagging along with Cloud, and that's still kind of ambiguous how they ended up befriending each other. But in terms of Kenku age, she is just barely what would be considered adult in Kenku years.
Mm-hmm.
So she is a very young bird, and we don't know a whole lot about where she came from yet, just because she hasn't been able to say it. But she does tend to, now that they're in the town, she does tend to gravitate over to the smithy just to listen to the noises there for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And she has a very peculiar idea of what breakfast is, clearly. But yeah, she tends to always be preparing for when she's gonna be hungry next, so she's just always kind of hiding things in her pockets, like shiny things. She loves shiny things. If it's
That's
shiny,
right.
it's going in her pocket.
Her trinkets. Yeah.
So
I don't know much, but I'm clear on the concept of breakfast. That's
That's right. Some have no questions otherwise.
Oh, no.
We just lost we just lost Strogan's video. There we go. I'm sure he'll be coming back in shortly.
oh, sorry.
Is he in the right, is he in the
It's all
right
good.
place?
See, you mentioned
Discord.
breakfast and Ryan got all twitchy.
Woo, out of here.
All right, yeah, there we go, coming back in. Yes, so in these moments, sorry, go ahead, Pleasant Doom. In these moments, just leading up to, yeah. Sorry, I didn't go
So
for you.
she was following Cloud to Dampshire because Cloud had made a friend there, and so she wanted to introduce Glitterbomb to her friend. and so that's what they were doing going into town, and it was her first sight of the city, and suddenly there's emergency.
An emergency, exactly. So leading into that, this was the intro for our first session. It went like this. Our story opens on the Hillsfar foothills, nestled in the great sprawling embrace of the Cormanthor Forest near the Moon Sea. The fabled and embroiled region of Flan to the north, the great Dragonspire peaks framing the west, and the Netheril Desert, with the Daylands to the south and the great empire of Thay far, thankfully, to the east. Toril is a great continent rich with adventure and danger in spades, and as such, rife with fantastic possibilities and treacherous villainy. Not all life in the world of Faerun is dramatic as all that. Citizens of the tapestry that make this world go about their daily lives for the most part. They have hobbies, dreams, families, and allegiances of their own. Of course, they all have their own histories and secrets as well. In the sleepy town of Dampshire, an influx of travelers has punctuated the cause for celebration in the village as visitors near and far arrive to herald the union of two of the more affluent community members. The graying mists and dim haze of a gray autumn morning does not seem to dampen the promise of this event as a fresh new day begins in the rolling plains that make home for this and other small hamlet towns in the region. And in this small region, as we kind of came in, we were talking about the connection of Glitterbomb and Cloud. What was the first thing you experienced then on the road to Dampshire as you made your way closer to town?
Oh gosh, I
Remember.
hardly remember.
Glitterbomb,
I think we.
Cloud, this is the one individual who had befriended you and treated you so well outside of the city limits.
Oh, when Gildas.
Gilda Strong, exactly, the captain of the town's militia, and he was embroiled in a battle of his own with a goblin.
That's right. Oh, okay.
That's right.
Thank you. I
It was
totally
a long
forgot
time
that
ago.
there was an actual battle happening.
That's
It
right.
was. It was. There was an actual battle happening, and when I realized it was Gildas, I jumped in, and I think Glitterbomb just jumped in behind me because she was like, "Okay, here we go.
That's right.
This is happening."
Yeah, like, Cloud's doing the thing. I'm doing a thing too.
And we started with battle.
This seems like
we,
fun.
we started with combat there as you guys came in, and thankfully
I had forgotten.
you were able to best the goblin attacker and secure Gildas and actually capture that goblin for questioning. Now, meanwhile, back in town, there was a raucous that had started out as one of the militia folk had approached Drogon, being the only battle-worthy individual they knew in town, to help that there was something foul afoot. Do you remember that, Drogon?
I do.
And
I was just sitting there in the forge getting things set up, and all of a sudden I hear this call. Drogon, quickly, he's gone. And recognizing Gildas there, I turn everything over to Scylla and grab my hammer, and I'm out the door.
That's right, and this was before he had been attacked on the road, so it wasn't Gildas he was talking about. Gildas was telling Drogon that someone was missing. Do you remember who that someone was?
That would be Devon.
Devon Artis.
Gildas's fiance.
That's right, the groom and the groom-to-be. So Devon's fiance, who is a performing artist, had gone missing. Muse, how were you drawn into this mess?
For Muse, he was relaxing on the balcony of the room he had rented and heard about the commotion and deciding that so far the people of this town have been pretty nice to him, and I'm sure at some point Gildas had actually taken a look, had figured Muse may have been in some type of trouble, but still let him slide. So Muse figured he'd pay it forward and take a look and see what's going on.
That's right. And as you all came together and were able to rescue Gildas from this ambush on the road, you were able to capture that goblin for questioning. You all went back to the scene of Devon's disappearance, which was a cottage just in the outskirts of town. And in investigating that cottage, you were now obviously drawn into this. Gildas now petitioning the help of the crew and the only people he's familiar with left that he trusted this type of work to. You did a quick kind of surface level inspection of the area. There were clear signs of distress and it's a word I'm looking for, signs of struggle in the cottage. And Glitterbomb, you found a feather there. Do you remember?
Oh yes, I
Yeah.
was chasing butterflies and looking at fun things, and I found a feather, and I recognized what kind of feather it was.
Yep.
It was a nightingale feather.
That's right. And I think as you and Cloud were both, Cloud, did you find or you were able to actually draw a map out, I think, of an area to help, what was it? Yes, when you were questioning the goblin. Because remember, this goblin had been horribly mistreated. Do you remember what had happened to her?
Mhm. I don't remember exactly what had happened to her. I have a terrible memory,
Mhm.
so just so you know. But I do remember Cloud getting much softer with her and
Right.
being excruciatingly kind. I think she might have given her a little bit of money even because
Possible. It's kind of Cloud's brand, really. It's just giving away her money.
yeah,
But this goblin
she
had
was
had
a
her tongue removed.
that
So
right.
she couldn't
So
speak.
so
Mhm.
she had actually she had drawn the map and I knew where it was.
Right, that's right. And you remembered it because
That's
you
what it
were.
was.
So we're all remembering the story tonight, by the way, guys. This is truly collaborative
Exactly
story
right.
making and telling, and you're part of that too, Chad. So I'm just going to take a quick pause there in the story thus far as we get caught up here. Sila, you know, we've had a lot of interest in the community about Dungeons and Dragons. Don't you guys find this like we know it well. We love it. We take for granted that a lot of people, it's really new and interesting and sometimes strange to a lot of people too. But we were all there at one point in time, and it doesn't feel natural, right? Like, but when you get into it and you commit to the story and you really embody this character, there's like something that no other experience will give you. You know, the ability to do or try whatever you want, to really live in a breathing world. It goes beyond what we'll get from video games, you know, which ultimately are scripted on some level. In the world of TTRPGs specifically, and in our game Dungeons and Dragons, it's it's really malleable. Like there's the question I get most from new players is, can I do this? And my answer is always, it's not about can you do something, it's about what do you want to try to do? What are you trying to do? And there's no limit on that, with the exception of, you know, our table etiquette, which we all know and appreciate, you know, be kind, similar ones that affect, you know, chat in our community here. But realistically, there's nothing that is out of your realm to try. And that's what really, when you start to live in the eyes of your character and breathe as them and just realize that this world is really truly open before you, that's when the magic really starts to happen. So I know I was asking some questions about like, how do I get involved in this? Is it as simple as like me picking a character here, there? I always tell people there are some rules that come into play because it is a game at the end of the day, and we all want to make sure we're playing by the same rules. But how we use those rules is what really makes each table different. In our view here, the rules are just really designed to make sure that we all understand how certain things work in the world the same way. Because if I have a different idea of how stealth works than Nikki has, and Cloud is relying on stealth, then that's going to create some inconsistency with how, you know, Cloud believes she should operate in the world and how the world actually operates, right? So that's how the rules come into place. And when we talk about things like rules or mechanics, they're really just things that handle the physics and the more black and white items in the world. Everything else is really just to the we'll say the peril or benefit of the story and what those relationships mean. So let me just get caught up here really quickly. I know Steph plays in our Tuesday live game, which is a bunch of friends of ours. That's off stream. She plays a character named Clada. So she's a big male Aasimar celestial warrior. I think that's
Awesome.
reminiscent of like the internal Steph, basically.
I love it, Steph. Do it.
That's one of the beauties of D&D, though, right? Is to get to be people you're not. I've got a friend
Exactly.
who I've played with for like a decade or more, and he is the quietest guy in real life and unassuming and like almost just not shy, but just will not speak up. But then you get him into D&D and it's the exact opposite, and he gets to role play all of these things and go through all these scenarios where he is the sarcastic guy and the guy that talks back all the time, and you get to bring out some things that that you don't feel like you can be other places. It's what's so great about it.
That's right. And when I'm when people are new to building a character, sometimes that can be daunting on its own. I always say, think about like the most heroic version of you that you would want to be and start there. Like, what does that look like? And if there's still trouble, I'll tell people, think about an archetype that you enjoy. Like, who's a great hero that you like, whether it's like a Wonder Woman or a He-Man or, a Duke that's a G.I. Joe reference, old school. Definitely dating myself there. Or even like a Ninja Turtle, your favorite Ninja Turtle. Or a musical character, it could be like Elphaba from Wicked. Think of somebody that you really consider heroic and start there, because anything that you can think of, the truly heroic version of you can create in Dungeons and Dragons, or in most TTRPGs, I would argue, right?
That's great advice.
Yeah, so that's and it usually helps get people past that, like that idea of, well, what can I be? Because invariably the first thing that people want answered is, what can I do? Right? And that's really hard for us to answer as people who know TTRPGs, because really, in the truest form, it's anything, right? So, Sila, for example, I want to be Rainbow Bright. Are any of you guys familiar with Rainbow Bright?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, all right.
Go for it.
All right, so
Go for it,
Ryan, Angela, and
will know.
Nikki. All right, who between
One of my children was a brony.
A brony. Yeah,
One of my kids was a brony.
I might be side questing
like,
as
"What?
a brony
You're a what?"
IRL actually. So Pleasant. How's your Rainbow Bright knowledge? Pretty good.
Oh gosh, it's pretty vague.
Pretty
It's like-
vague. Nikki, how's your Rainbow Bright knowledge?
I listened, but I'm not sure I heard everything that my kid was saying all the time. But I know it's a My Little Pony.
No, Rainbow Bright is like the Rainbow Bright's
It's
like the
her
plush
own
doll.
thing.
Rainbow
Yeah, she had
Dash.
like the
Yeah.
yarn hair. Oh, you're thinking Rainbow Dash.
Oh, I'm thinking about Rainbow Dash.
Yeah.
We'll come back to bronies though,
I don't
because
know
I have a
anything then.
piece for that.
No, nothing.
Ryan, what do you know about Rainbow Bright?
Oh, my sister watched it all the time. So
Okay.
we came on right after G.I. Joe, or right after the Mario hour, and we went straight into Rainbow Bright. And
So-
she rode around on a white horse, and she had her friends, and they were all different color oriented friends or whatever. And then of course you can go buy all the dolls and stuff. And,
Right.
we had Rainbow Bright stuff in our house.
So unexpectedly, I'm going to throw to Ryan for this. How would you build like a Rainbow Bright type character? Like not into too much detail, but think about a D&D class that would be a good template starter to build a Rainbow Bright type character.
Yeah, you could go the magic route, because she had some magic stuff, and go sorcerer there, I think would be a good one.
Yeah.
Although Rainbow Bright Warlock would be kind of fun too.
That would be good. I also feel like there's a little bit of Bard in there,
but
because
you
she
could
was
go the
always
fi-
like,
Yeah.
she was always kind of like perky, plucky,
That's true. She was always trying to keep her friends going and everything, and so yeah, you could play that as a bard for sure.
There you go. What other actual play stream are we going to dissect, like how to create Rainbow Bright as a D&D 5e class? So there
As
you
a
go.
D&D, yeah.
She could be a gnome. Yeah. So we got some good knowledge in chat. This is good. Let's roll with this. So a magic gnome, Sila. I think you're onto something there too, Ryan. I think a sorcerer bard, maybe multi-class. So Sila, bards are like your entertainment. You're typically outgoing, not necessarily have to be, but they're usually like the front and center, the performer class, let's say. And then sorcerers draw this like wild magic. Pleasant Doom, who play as Glitterbomb. Glitterbomb is a Kenku sorcerer, and a lot like that. She's very multicolored. Like her thing is, Glitterbomb. Why don't you tell us about like how her powers manifest?
I actually play a bard in a couple of different games too, so I know a little bit about both bards and sorcerer.
Yeah.
One of the fun things with sorcerers is they usually have some outward sign of being born with magic in some way. Like for Glitterbomb, it's her feathers being brightly colored when they're supposed to be drab.
Mm-hmm.
And they also have a sign of sorcery, so when they cast magic, there's kind of an outward sign of them casting magic. Like for Glitterbomb, she poofs with silver sparkles, like just poof.
Mm-hmm.
There's also different kinds of sorcerers that you can go with. I use wild magic for Glitterbomb specifically because it's like nobody's really taught her anything about magic, and her magic is just kind of wild and chaotic
Mhm.
and does its own thing. But there's also like the storm sorcerer, the dragon blood sorcerer. There's all kinds of different places it can go. It can come from, and they're going to
Yeah.
give you different advantages and different drawbacks. But it's kind of like what makes sense of where that magic came from.
Yeah. And that's where things get great, right? That's where as a DM and I think as us as players, that's where we really work together. That's where the rules stop, right? Like so the rules govern specific spells, certain abilities, but how we storify, for example, how Glitterbomb got her magic, which was entirely, Pleasant Doom's concoction. That's where I think as good GMs and good players, we ease off on the rules and we say, well, what works best? What makes a better story? What makes most sense to you? And I think that's where the real like magic, pun intended, tends to happen. So there you go, Sila. That's a perfect example. Like if you did a magic based gnome, something like we clearly would recommend either like a sorcerer bard class or a mix of both. That will give you that kind of Rainbow Bright. Literally, we just basically framed up Rainbow Bright and D&D, and it's that simple. Then we get into the details about like where the power comes from and things like that.
And
Well, you can
personally,
start having fun with the rules too, and just pick color-based spells.
Yeah, yeah,
prismatic
absolutely.
spray and fireball and
right.
just anything based on a color.
And personally,
Angela?
I would also encourage multi-classing with Bard, especially if you're looking for a character that inspires other. You've got that bardic inspiration where
Yeah.
they just say a few really inspiring words, and suddenly that just boosts the other character's abilities a little bit. So it also gives you access to some slightly different spells. So
And it's exciting. And Silas says, "You're pulling me in." That's how we do it, baby. We're like the nerds who like, you can go in the dark alleys or people like, hey, like try this. And that's kind of like what we do as nerds, except we don't have like illicit substances. We have bags of dice and we kind of invite you into our dark corner and we're like, hey, just try this. Like just try it once. And I guarantee you'll be
Hey.
hooked. We kind of are like narrative drug dealers. That's
you want to roll a 20?
you want to roll a 20. Keep trying until you get it. Keep trying until you get it. It's amazing, and I hope you will have the chance to do that. On that note, actually, gang, here is the Discord info. We have a wonderful community that's constantly growing on Discord. We've really just started focusing heavily on community gaming specifically. Actually, Angela Pleasant Doom has been a big part of that, and Pot and Chat. We're a big part of leading that initiative, and now we have several games that we play as a community. We've had great numbers coming out. We just launched a dedicated Valheim server for the community, which is up 24/7. A really amazing experience. So I'd love for you to get in on that, mainly because the next game that I want to share with the community will be D&D, and we're looking to do that through a series of one-shots, getting people on board for quick little adventures, just to give you a taste of what that's like. And if you continue to like it, then we'll figure out how we can make D&D available to more people through that community. So, and otherwise, if you're tired of playing with randoms, you want a good group of people to get in game with, whatever it is, whether it's Call of Duty, Valheim, what else, Raft, bigger, it was probably Sea of Thieves might be a little bit more available to people too. Or if you have a suggestion for a game that we haven't tackled, then by all means get in there and hit us up. So moving along with the story. So after you had questioned this goblin, you found out that they had taken Devon northward through a place called Bridge Tree, which both Cloud and Glitter were able to reason from the drawing that this goblin had created. And then I believe, did you guys let the goblin go?
That one, yeah.
Yeah, that one. Ryan clarifies. That one we did. So there you go. As you guys then made your way northward, you found a pretty heavily populated Bridge Tree crawling with goblins in this particular tribe. But you didn't really take them head on, so to speak, did you? Muse, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you guys infiltrated and effectively bested the Bridge Tree Goblin tribe?
Well, Muse has two usual tricks in his arsenal. One is the last word and a quick bullet. The other is talking himself into and out of trouble, sometimes both in the same hour. So Muse redonned his identity of Chiron, the bandit leader of the Bloodscarves, and managed to convince the goblins that him and his associates, his crew of ne'er-do-wells, were brought in to help back up the pretty lady and make sure Devin wasn't captured or wasn't taken back. Thankfully, with a couple of his mechanical trinkets and a lot of really, really well placed words, he was able to convince the goblins that, including the goblin spellslinger, that they were actually part of the reinforcements. And he even managed to make the goblin sorcerer believe that as they're both masters of the arcane, that through, I forget the exact phrase, but it was like the honor of the spellslingers or something like that, that he would lose his magic if he was lying. So the goblin sorcerer bought it hook, line, and sinker up to a point.
Yeah, absolutely. And in that moment, you had completely won them over. The whole party, of course, playing into this. And where did Muse draw this like concocted, deep narrative on what the party was doing there and where they were from? Did you say that, or did I miss it? Sorry.
The pretty lady had hired them as additional backup, just in case Dampshire sent more guards to try and rescue Devin. Yep. So, of course, he had also made up identities for every one of the companions as well.
Mm-hmm. And where did he draw those identities from?
I believe Muse pretty much made them up as he went along.
Oh, gotcha.
I
thought he drew them from members of his old running mates.
Oh yeah, shoot!
Thank you. His old crew, yes, right?
Yeah. He kind of picked up traits of some of his old crew and placed them on top of his current companions to both so he didn't slip up with them, but he could also then continue talking for them to sell it as well as he could, considering he was a little worry-clad and Glitterbomb may blow the act before they were able to get through.
Yeah, he had those two pegged right out the bat. And there are a bunch of really tense moments, a lot of ability checks. So if you're new to the game, what we do is how we make something like that work is, first of all, the players decide what they want to do. And it kind of happened in the moment because you guys were literally surrounded. Like, this place was swarming with goblins. If it had come to blows, very good likelihood that the party may have died there and then, 2 sessions in. Actually, this is 3 sessions in, because I realized you almost did die in the first session. There was a dire wolf ambush that had a couple of clutch Hail Mary plays, and this is why it's so exciting, because the combat gets very intense. Players get committed to and invested in their character, and the threat of death is very real in the game. So that is what really raises the stakes for things. And in the second session, or particularly when characters are lower level, they're a lot more vulnerable. So we came pretty close to that in a little bit of a experience on the way to Bridge Tree. But through your navigation of Bridge Tree, the infiltration of the tribe, and the convincing of them that you were there by the pretty lady's merits, you're able to roll well and story well and make that work without rolling a single attack. And at the end, this is where it kind of came to the pinnacle. I do want to just add that before that, you had also found a ransom note that was left for Devin, and I forgot about this when we were just doing the recap. So you're able to derive from that ransom note. Actually, here are the notes from the last session as it began. Barely a full day into their investigation and search for Gildas Strong's abducted groom, Devin, Muse, Cloud, Drogon, and Glitterbomb pieced together the fragments of a story that may possibly shed some light on who is responsible for his disappearance beyond the snarling greed lust of a few well-armed goblins. They were able to derive from Devin's ransom note that their unfortunate captive Glarg, which was the goblin that you had questioned, that the tribe had kidnapped the groom to be at the behest of a lady who clearly had these goblinkin wrapped in fear. Further pursuit determined their whereabouts to be a large tree-bound structure with which Cloud recalled in her years navigating the Cormanthor as Bridge Tree. Glitterbomb unearthed the marking of a rare nightingale feather at the scene of Devon's vanishing, representing an interesting clue as the rare songbird is not native to this area, region, and seldom seen out of captivity. Piecing these clues together, the newfound companions set off to trek the long expanse from the gates of Dampshire deep into the Cormanthor and through the woodlands to the great tree in hopes of finding answers. But the night fell quickly over the thickening forest, and that's where you guys made camp and were attacked by dire wolves. But you made it out. Made it through Bridgetree, as Muse just so eloquently walked us through again. Maybe what I'll do is I'll read the session intro first, because I realize I probably would have jogged a lot of us in hindsight. And for this one, actually, what Muse was just telling us, the session intro was this. With astonishing poise and a nearly unsettling ease, Muse had led the companions on a tightrope walk of deception up through and beyond the reaches of the goblin tribe's stranglehold on Bridgetree, literally dancing a tail right underneath their foolish snouts. As the tension built all around, glowing yellowed eyes on the quartet, more than a dozen goblins seemed to have now accepted that the party was indeed dispatched to help bolster the contingent on behalf of the pretty lady. And the creatures were not so eager to alarm or displease the matron, who seems to have them all on the edge of their steps. Either way, the clock still runs against Devon's fate and his unknown whereabouts. While they seem to have identified the leader of this particular group in a mysterious spellslinger and even fooled him too, there still appears to be no sign of Devon or his true captors. Now, in the highest reaches of Bridgetree goblin occupation, Muse, Glitterbomb, Drogon, and Cloud must continue to rely on their quick wit or pure luck to maintain the ruse long enough to find a lead to Devon's whereabouts or an opportunity to make a graceful exit in hopes of reestablishing the trail to find the kidnapped groom-to-be. And as you followed this trail beyond Bridgetree, it led you to another camp, a small forward camp where your thwarted the Spellsinger and his small contingent had left Bridgetree in your care, having fooled him into doing so. But when you caught up with them at the camp, Drogon, tell me a little bit about what you remember happening there.
I remember that we had it for a little bit, and then things went south. And I'm trying to remember what happened that finally broke the.
Who remembers
what
you guys ran into there?
Broke the disbelief there. Dang it.
The Spellslinger had been made wise in the time that you were at Bridgetree.
That's right.
And by the time you had arrived, they were actually just gearing up to head back to Bridgetree and confront their usurpers, for lack of a better word. Muse, I'll throw back to you because really this was kind of your
Muse what got us out of it.
Yeah,
this was
into and out of it.
An epic moment here.
Right, so you remember that. So Muse, tell us a little bit about that. As oops, we lost Angela for a quick minute. There we go. All right, Muse, tell us a little bit about what happened in that moment.
Of course. So after Muse had successfully sold the Legend of Chiron of the Bloodscarves and his crew of bandits, including actually getting one of the goblins to the point of starstruck and wanting to accompany them for a little bit, Pio, they end up going to the forward camp where the Spellslinger had unfortunately communicated with the pretty lady and Muse's cover was blown.
Yeah, so let me pause real quick because I want to clarify that. You're right, I forgot to mention that you had really especially befriended one of the goblins named Pio in the Bridge tribe. I know you just mentioned that. That's important, chat, because Pio was more than just taken in by the ruse. She was actually quite inspired by it. And in your time in Bridgetree, she really connected with Muse particularly. So sorry, continue, Muse.
Of course. Yeah. So as they had went to the forward camp, the Spellslinger had, well, for more or less figured out that Muse had pretty much sold them all a story, and decided at that point it was time to deal with all of them. Muse, in his true fashion, after realizing, oh great, we're busted, pulled out the last word and shot the goblin. With that kicking off combat, Muse ended up actually taking a axe to the chest and was on his last legs, and Pio was armed and had a choice to either take out Muse or turn on her companions, and Muse had told her that everyone has a chance to make everyone has a chance to make their own story, and this is yours. You can choose. You can choose to become Bloodscarf with us, or you can stick with the goblins and be just another faceless goblin. She turned on her companions, both saving Muse's hide and helping turn the battle in favor of the companions.
That's right. And she did get the kill shot in that. So as the web of deceit so carefully crafted by the party eventually caught up with them after leaving the goblin stronghold in Bridge Tree, while those gods who linger in the realm of luck had clearly favored them in several narrow and potentially threatening engagements to their ruse, they were able to keep their false identities as members of a mercenary group intact, so convincing posing as highly qualified brigands of the Bloodscarves sent to bolster the Pretty Lady's contingent to Bridge Tree. They even earned their trust in the companionship of Pio. As they were returning back, the Spellslinger had, unbeknownst to the party, had received word from his superiors that there was no such contingent, and this is where they were heading back, locked in battle midway on the road. And Pio actually scored the killing blow on her former boss, we'll say, trading it for not only new companionship, but a potentially entirely new future for her as well. So that's pretty incredible. And as you thwarted that contingent or the forward camp group, you knew that reinforcements would likely not be far behind. So you were inspired to continue deeper into the Corminthor onward and continue your investigation for Devon. So this led you deeper into the Corminthor, and from there things started to get even a little bit more strange. Cloud, tell us a little bit about the rest of that road along Corminthor and what you experienced on the way to your end destination, and how you found where that destination was in the first place.
Oh wow. I do remember them not really being sure that they could trust that I was taking them where we needed to go, because, you know, Cloud's like out into the woods chasing, and then she'll come back, and I do remember that part. That's kind of funny, but
She kind of fell into
we
the
ran
group,
in.
the role of group navigator for a bit there, right?
Well, somehow I think she just walked ahead anyway, so you might as well follow her, right?
She seemed to know the woods more than anyone else.
There's a lot of wandering off, though.
Yeah, she
Oh yeah. She's definitely one of those squirrel, and off she goes. You're never gonna stop that from happening. But I think the next thing that we encountered would have been that drunk guy in the woods, right?
Bartimer. Was it Bartimer?
Bartleby.
That's right.
Bartleby.
Yep. Bartimer Bandiful. You're right. Beyond his.
Bartimer.
Yep. Before long, the discovery of a pair of horse tracks and footprints too large and heavy to belie goblin traffic led the companions eastward, deeper into the northern Corminthor, and on the only road forward. As quickly as the road narrowed to an overgrown passage marked with stone and dirt, so too did the heavy weight of day settle over the party as night approached. At the juncture of dusk, they happened upon an interesting fellow, a washed-up image of a thought of an adventurer named Bartimer Bandiful. Caught their attention, convincing them to at least hear his plight. Who wants to talk about what Bartimer had to say and what he was doing in the deep Corminthor?
I already talked a lot, so I'll shut up.
He was watching over the goblin camp.
The goblin
right?
camp, right?
And,
So what did he know? What did he show you guys?
He had some delusions of grandeur that he could take it over himself, like fight everybody himself, and we didn't think that was going to work out. At one point we had to tie him up to keep him from wandering down into there, if I remember right.
We had to gag him too because he wouldn't stop talking.
Yep.
I mean, he seemed like a good guy to have on your side, but not one that you want just crashing into places. So
beyond
I don't think that we didn't really stick with him very long, and once we found out what we needed to know.
More than long enough to understand what Bartimer's value was, and more importantly, where it ended. Beyond his obvious buffoonery, Bandiful did offer something of value, though. A clear overlook of the sprawling goblin fort in the center of a vast valley beyond the road's edge. Intently they watched as the very quarry they seek, Devon Artis, hostage to 2 hobgoblins, entered the fort to make the acquaintance of a lean, well-adorned female bandit. Clearly the superior of the contingent, the blonde-haired masked maiden exerted her displeasure with them for reasons unknown to the party, leaving one of the 2 lifeless in the sand of the fort, the other with a very clear message to carry forward as she mounted and left the premises promptly, and the hostage again in the care of the goblin tribe below. So now you know you've identified Devin and you know where he is for the first time in this story. Left pining for a strategy on how to enter the fort, quickly, literally crawling with goblins to secure your objective, the crew were drawn to a commotion on the thinning, scarcely traveled road behind you. Who remembers what that next interaction was, traveling down the rough-hewn, rocky, narrow pathways of the Cormanthor?
Can I interrupt? Can I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, how did it feel? Like, we came across this NPC.
Yep.
That like had a name, had a last name, had a personality, and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, nope, we're tying him up and leaving him here, and we're gonna keep this goblin. We're gonna keep this goblin that we made you come up with on the spot. And she's coming with us, and we're all in on PO, and we don't care anything about this other guy.
Yeah.
Just tied up there. We had to take friend rope with us.
Oh,
that's true.
Yeah, that's right.
No, he was passed out or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
He passed out,
did-
and we untied him and left him.
I
Yeah.
think we
We-
convinced him to keep an eye on there and keep a lookout and yell for us if something went south.
I'm gonna have to go back to that because
That's
you may
great.
have, or you may have tied. I know you didn't tie him up with friend rope because friend rope, obviously. We'll come back to that. Don't let me forget about that because I forgot
He
about
did
friend
get
rope.
tied up with friend
Just
rope.
don't.
for a
I
little
don't
bit.
think Cloud
Ah.
would have left him tied up, no
Just
matter
tied
what.
up for the bears. Yeah,
That's what
so-
I'm trying to remember.
So maybe you did convince him. I'll have to go
Yeah.
back and double check because maybe you did convince him to stay, or maybe I have it in the notes and I just forgot about it. So let's find out. Yeah, to answer your question, Ryan, and this is a good one. So this is the plight of the DM, right? Like we craft these things, but we have to be willing to let them go. Otherwise, you get forced into a situation where you're railroading your players, right? Like if I insisted that you guys experience everything as it was written, as it was intended, then it wouldn't be much fun. I would take away from you the ability to make those choices. As it happens, your choice to bring Pio into the narrative is much more exciting for me because you guys created it, and I'm enjoying playing Pio way more than I enjoyed playing Bartimer, so that was a win as well. But the reality is, like,
That was awesome.
everything in the world is living in real time, right? Like that's always been my approach to it. So if you were to make that choice or dispose of both, you know, I've had players go into a dungeon that I've spent a week creating, well, not a week creating, but let's say like a handful of hours creating, and they've gone in, they've grabbed their objective, and they've left like an entire dungeon behind. Sometimes it happens. That's why it's important for me to, and thank you for the question, by the way, because I like to answer this one. It's important for me to enjoy the craft of it and not like be so intent on the execution that I force people to do it one way or the other, right? So for me, the joy ends with like creating the product, putting it in the world, and then just watching how it plays out. So it was a lot of fun for me, and like I said, it turned out better than I ever could have expected, and it always does. But that I think is the joy of running the game, is just being able to hand it over and just I'm along for the ride as much as you guys are at that point. And Pio's a great character. I don't know if Pio will continue with you guys, because obviously Pio has a history. She has to make decisions that Pio would make. But even for whatever part of it she plays, it's been pretty amazing. So and Bartimer, whatever he did, whatever you guys did, and whatever he did after, you know, he's on his own now somewhere anyway, because I do know that he's currently missing. So whatever happened to him. But yeah, he was an interesting character though too. It was a bit of comic relief, I think, in exactly the right place, and more comic relief followed after that. So yeah, and you guys can ask me questions, chat. You can ask me questions as well, by all means. I like to lift the veil a little bit, and I'll let you know if there's something I can't quite tell you yet. But more comedic characters entered the story after that point. Who's got it?
Traveling acting troupe.
There you go, traveling acting troupe. What happened, Cloud?
We encountered them coming up the road, and I don't remember. some really good role playing, and then next thing I knew, we were part of the traveling acting troupe that was heading right there to where we needed to go to get Gildas out.
Yeah, it was amazing.
They were
And sorry, I do have written here with Bandiful bound and gagged to prevent the oaf from causing complications. They carefully considered this new arrival with uncertainty. Sorry, Cloud, continue.
Oh my God, we must have been so sidetracked by what happened that we totally forgot him there because I just
Possibly. I don't know until
Cloud's
I
gonna
read
start
further
having
what happened
nightmares
either, because
now.
I really don't remember what happened next. So the next segment might be, and
Got
then
into-
because they're not evil, they untied him. But I don't know if that's actually in the notes. So.
I really hope we did because that's gonna be a haunting thing.
Maybe
At
he's the
least
new
for
big
Cloud,
bad.
That's gonna haunt him.
He's your next
We
villain.
tied him up with friend rope, so
Yeah.
once we recalled the rope, he was free.
Yeah, for sure. I do know that. So let's see as we read along, and
Yeah.
and I also
Okay.
it'll be a surprise to
I-
me too.
I'm sure we convinced him to keep a lookout over
I
the
feel like you may have.
the fortress, just to keep him out of the way, to keep him from trying to storm the castle, as it were.
Yeah. Well, as because we're still in the midst of it then. So the troop rolled up, and this was, let's see, there was a. Let me take a look. Yes, the driver and the owner of this troop was Friggin Wallow. Do you remember Friggin? Friggin
Yeah.
the scruffy dwarf. And when he rolled up, he had his own troop of miscreants and bardiers, we'll say, on the road to what were they doing, Cloud?
They were heading to the camp where we were going to get to save Gilda or to save Devon, and they were performing a goblin play, right?
That's right. It was The Rescue of the
Yeah.
Fair Goblin
And-
Maiden was the name of the yeah. A well-known amongst goblins
Yeah.
traditional
You're right.
staging.
Apparently.
Written by the goblin version
Just
of
you know what, I
Shakespeare.
don't
I'm
remember-
sure.
Really don't remember the specifics, but I do remember that this was one of my favorite parts that led up to probably my absolute most favorite part, which was us actually forming the play eventually. And especially, I think my favorite part of that was you got Cloud ended up being the narrator, and just told me to pretend to. I can't remember what the exact words you guys used to convince me to do it, or I asked, how am I supposed to do this, and you guys were like, well, just I'll pretend or whatever you told me made me think that meant acting exactly
Pretend
like
you're
Muse.
That's what we told you.
Pretend
That's
you're
right.
Muse, right? Because at this point, Muse had
Oh.
well established himself as a spinner of tales, so to speak.
Pretend you're Muse.
A heroic
So
liar.
when we did the play, I spoke exactly like Muse. I did
That's
it
right.
in that southern drawl.
Brilliant. And just before you had managed that, so you were resigned to using the veneer of this traveling acting troupe as your one really good shot to get inside the camp. You traveled with Friggin. What happened to the actors who were supposed to do it?
We convinced them it wasn't worth it. They weren't going to get paid for it. And they stormed off.
That's
they
right.
started walking back.
Between
And I
the
think that's where the last of my money went.
That's it. Between the failing promise of money and the increasing danger that you were able to let them know they were walking into, a lot of them got pretty jittery. And one of them in particular was a large, kind of less than intelligent gent named Tanbar. And Tanbar was kind of like goofy. He had a fake sword. And he said to Cloud that he didn't have any money, so he had to do this. And Cloud, in true Cloud fashion, did what? She offered him her money.
I just held out the last of the money I had in my pouch. He grabbed it and ran.
That's right. All of Cloud's drip is in her teeth, so she doesn't need these coins. She's got like gems for fangs. But yeah, like innocently, because Cloud doesn't really know the worldly value of things, or let's say the human or humanoid crafted value of things. She's like, well, here, is this what you need? And the guy was like, yeah. She's like, do you want mine? And he was like, mm-hmm. And then he slowly took her stuff and immediately left down the road. So sure that it was some kind of trick or ruse, he just kind of took it and gingerly left. So that was an easy one. But at that point, all of the hired, let's say, thespians had left their posts, now making room for the group to almost entirely staff this, with exception of a couple of other players who stayed, and of course Friggin to see the contract through at the Goblin Camp. So you rode the rest of the way with the caravan. Let's see if we what the hell happened to Bandiful? I'll have to check my notes here.
I would also like to say at this point, Brad, that
yes.
I honestly was like, okay, he's not going to make us do this. There's no way.
The play.
No way. And then you were like, okay, so there are a couple things you need to look at in Roll20. You'll see your scripts. I was like, actually do a play.
Yeah, they're still there.
Yeah. And credit to the writers, the original published work, that part was pretty much intact. Like that's one of the pieces that I just took almost like just the idea of, and I was like, this is great. Like this speaks to my heart too, and I couldn't wait to see how you guys are going to handle that. You had complete scripts. They had like their characters, like character descriptions. I've read a lot of scripts in my time. I'm sure all of us have either read or written as many, and it was really well fleshed out that way too. And there was a song at the end, if you guys remember. But
there's a song at the end.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. That's
everybody
the cherry on
needs
top.
to go see that VOD for
that
sure.
Was a
That's
great
the best
VOD.
one.
Yeah,
making us sing.
Such a great episode of you guys sung the closing anthem. But before that, you had to get in, and the goblins still weren't quite convinced as you rolled up to the Goblin Fort itself. Oh, first of all, we got a ding-a-lingy. Let me just set my notes aside here. Kim, thank you very much for liking the stream, helping us get the word out. Welcome, Kim. It's D&D night, so if you have any questions about what we're doing, let me know. We're well underway with the story recap here, and we'll continue with that now. So thank you for liking and sharing the stream. So as you got into it, and you made your way to the gates, this forward outpost that the goblins now called home, or the most impressive version of the Goblin Fort you've seen, not a little rough around the edges, was a marvel for goblins to achieve based on what you've come to expect from the typically sniveling, Skarshack, uncoordinated savages, typically. The structures here are sturdy and well built around the careful defense of the small stronghold. The ground is worn and patchy with heavy foot traffic, and the dirt that comes and goes through its 3 distinct sections is grooved and trenched with horse tracks and wagon paths alike. There is a constant chattering of goblin speech resonant in the stale air, marked by the occasional boom of a different kind of voice. You catch a glimpse of the odd hobgoblin barking orders at the occasional kick to the goblin mercenaries to keep them in line. They clearly hold station over the fort-dwelling goblins. The rumble of heavy footsteps touches the earth as the large ogre steps out from his shed in the front section and on about his business of the fort. You can be sure of one thing: there's little room for error by or acceptance of anyone in the fort, anyone that the fort band of creatures is not either accepting or expecting. From your brief survey of the walled camp, there's a main entrance section where the large rolling gates preside, leading the enormous shelter that houses the ogre. This section continues forward into the main barracks, where a raised wooden dais sits in an L-shaped area housing 3 other standing buildings. To the east, beyond the stage, an iron gate separates the third camp section, where a majority of the hobgoblins seem to keep to. But you can't make out much beyond another few buildings in this section from what you can see. And when you got there, the horses pulled to a stop. Friggin had drawn back on the reins, causing them to whinny and stamp uncomfortably in the dry dirt of the small road that led to these immense wood-spired gates. And there was some exchange between Friggin and the goblins, and at the moment, they weren't going to let you in. And do you guys remember how you were able to convince those goblins that you were there as a performing troupe?
I remember a little bit.
Okay, let's go Glitter, and I'm sure Muse can back you up on this too. Go for it.
Muse is part of it, but it started out Glitter Bomb decided she knew how to do some little illusions, so she basically started up some illusions and called on Mage Hand to kind of help make it look like some coat was dancing, and she danced with the coat. And
That's right. Yep.
So yeah, and I think Muse ended up joining in to cast some other illusions and join in on the fun of it.
That's right. So you were able to add some like thaumaturgy, some sparkle, some lights to really further emphasize. Muse, what did you want to add?
Muse also did what Muse does best and spun another story as well.
Right. That's right. And I think your clockwork ferret featured in that as well, didn't it?
Yep.
Because he's a tinkerer, right? He's an artisan, and he has these kind of magic-infused clockwork companions. And actually, sorry, I don't want to get ahead of myself. So you were able to kind of create this spectacle, which was more than enough to enthrall the goblins who held watch over the gates and managed the inflow and outflow of visitors or people who should or shouldn't be in the fort. Kim says, I played a different dice and paper game called Champions, like D&D, but with superheroes. You guys familiar with that? Kim, aren't they so fun? Like, that's it. Tabletop gaming is just true magic, and we've showcased that love as well. So if you have any questions about what we're doing, by all means, don't hesitate to ask. You've heard about that one, right?
Champions was my go-to. In my neighborhood, we had one guy that ran D&D for us, one guy that ran Star Wars, D6 Star Wars,
Nice.
and I ran Champions.
That's awesome.
So that was my first DM
There you go.
GM.
Solidarity, empathy, Kim. Have you played D&D before, Kim? They brought an ogre. That's right. A little clap back to Lord of the Rings. Very nice. Hey, welcome, Snowman. How's it going, dude? Just want to stop in and say hello. That's right. It's D&D night on Wednesday. We're talking about the story that we're eventually we're bringing back next Wednesday into session with season 2 and a whole new arc of the continuation of that adventure. So I hope you guys will join us next Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific time for the continuation of this great story. And this is kind of our rehashing, our recap for our viewers, obviously, because clearly we know and remember every detail. No, I'm kidding. It's obviously acting as a bit of a refresher for us too as we work our way back through the story. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Kim, I haven't played D&D, but I'd love to sometime. Awesome. You should join us on Discord, Kim, because we are going to start spinning up some one-shots for community members too. We'd love to have you at the table. So as you made your way into the fort, gang, you made it's stank, it's mire, it's gross, you're welcomed basically by this hovel that's inhabited by this large gate ogre and a beast of burden, more or less, for these goblins whose almost sole use or purpose is to manage the massive log gates that protect the fort. So after he led you in and the troubadour's wagon comes to a rocking kind of jerky halt before the stage, you got out, met what would be either fans or foes depending on your performance, and begun to get ready for the performance that this play that was part of your ruse to enter the fort in the first place. 4 adventurers, former mercenaries, forge masters, outcasts alike, now suddenly thrust into the role of performing artists. Do you guys remember what roles you took on? I know, Cloud, you mentioned that you were nominated to be the narrator. Do you guys also remember what you were playing?
Muse was the villain.
Muse was the villain.
Glitterbomb was the comic relief, I guess.
Comic relief. I think we're all a little bit of comic relief. But yeah, gotcha. Drogon, do you remember?
Drogon was the goblin, like, lord or like dad of the anyway, it was his birthday.
Right.
I remember that. It's my birthday.
So you were Brika, the one with the birthday. That's right. Gravitus.
I'm bringing up the script now. There I am.
Gravitus was the wizened old thespian who stayed on with the troupe, and I'm the most veteran performer amongst us, so of course I'm going to stay. And that was Gravitus who stayed with you. Pio, your newfound companion, was cast in the role of Snots, and Glitterbomb played Pim Pam. That's right, the comic relief. Muse was Grug, the villain in the story, and Cloud, of course, is the narrator. And it was amazing. We don't get to just decide it was amazing. You guys actually performed the play. You performed the script, and it was really incredible. I don't even think I got you to roll anything because you were so committed to it, and it was amazing. And I got to sit back and watch this play, so that was a really great treat for me as a game master. Yeah, and it was amazing. And then it ended with what we teased earlier, which was this song. So you guys had sheet music, and the sheet music is actually real. The chords are real, the notes are real. I don't know if that's what we sang, but we sang something, and it was pretty
God,
magical. And it is immortalized in the annals of the internet, so you can check it out on the YouTube
gosh.
channel. All of the episodes are there. By the way, gang, that is true. If you want to watch all of these played through, all the episodes are available on YouTube. You might just have to go to the video section and search them back. I had playlists up there, or just check the playlists because I think there's a playlist specifically for it. It's also in the collections here on Twitch if you want to check those out too under videos. So if you want to watch those, you got like a week to binge it. Go right ahead. I think there were 7 or 8 episodes in total, which will lead us to where we're starting next week on Wednesday. What else? What other
We
memories?
performed that exactly the way that all goblin camps perform that.
Yeah,
It was
that's fair.
exactly
That's a fair
true.
benchmark. Yeah, that's
To
true.
any goblin performance.
And they were screaming like Oscar at the end of that, I'm pretty sure. Like they were, yeah, that's the goblin equivalent of the Oscars. You guys would have swept for sure. But what you did sweep was the fort thereafter. So after having enraptured and bedazzled the group of goblins, you then had a more pressing mission to see to. But now you're in the middle of a, dozens and dozens thick goblin contingent in their home base, well behind enemy lines, tons of threats around. What did you do then go from performing a play to really kind of casing the fort and finding your quarry or the intended target in the rescue of Devin Artis, who was captive here? Let's start with Muse and Pio. Because your job, Muse, if I recall, was to create the distraction that was going to let the rest of the party go to work.
Yep. Muse once again pulled on his natural ability to talk a lot of crap and throw up some fireworks as well as some dancing mechanical creatures, as well as, of course, he kind of had he made sure Pio was the center of attention as well. The goblin heroine who stole the hearts of all of the goblins in the camp. And basically kept this show going until, the proverbial stuff hit the fan.
That's right. And propping Pio up as like one of their own who has risen to this level of celebrity status, I think really helped capture the interest of the goblins beyond the play, right? Because then they were suddenly swarming you guys, which gave Cloud, Glitterbomb, and Drogon a bit of a different opportunity. So let's move to Cloud and Glitterbomb because you guys decided that you were going to start to work the perimeter. Do you remember this after you left the group? What did you find?
See, they both went over to the wall and they pretended that
Glitterbomb had to pee.
Yeah.
That's right.
Really had to pee. But she needed some privacy because she was nervous.
And I think politely they showed you to the pee pile.
Shy
They were like,
bladder.
yeah, it's right over there. There's the pee mound. That's where you do it. Because
And
goblins.
So they insisted like, no, Glitterbomb needs some privacy. So they're like, okay, we really shouldn't do this. But that's where we kind of go outside the walls. So they showed us to a hole in the wall. Outside the hole in the wall, there were goblins taking a break of their own, and we convinced them that we just needed a little fresh air, and oh hey, people were probably looking for them, so they should probably go back.
Yeah, and you were able to leverage the fact that they had snuck out of the wall to smoke some illicit imported leaf that they weren't supposed to be doing either. So you kind of found that leverage, convinced them quite easily because clearly they didn't want to get in trouble with their bosses either. And when they went inside to let let Cloud do her business and leave you guys alone outside the perimeter, what did you do then?
Our way around the outside.
Yeah,
Little by little.
That's right. Back to the wall, you guys started
A couple
to
of trailer
around.
park girls.
That's right. Party at the gates. There were also patrols in the towers around those, so you were very carefully sneaking along the gates, being wary and mindful of where the overwatch was, so not to draw the attention of those overlook guards or those high positions. And you made your way all around the back. And just to recap that, the odd gathering of quick fans of the show still congregate in the main segment of the rank, otherwise vile Goblin Fort, as Friggin and his few remaining thespians eagerly acquainted with Jumper, who was the goblin that had contracted the performance in the first place. The party spread out in hopes to covertly survey the fort, its inhabitants' defenses, and to attempt to locate Devon. The eastern section of the fort remained elusive, only traveled by the more grotesque gray and red-skinned hobgoblins, who clearly feature as the lowly goblin superiors. Pio seems to be of particular interest to the goblin cohort, and seeing this as an opportunity, Muse bolsters her tales of captivity to pursue the exciting life of a stage actor and celebrity with more tricks and arcane mastery. Meanwhile, this allowed Drogon mere seconds to attempt to release the locked gate. Do you remember that, Drogon? Drogon took that moment to
Attempt is the correct word.
Yeah, so as Glitterbomb and Cloud were making their way out around the perimeter, what was Drogon trying to do to gain access to this other withheld section of the fort?
Seeing a chance to sneak over to this gate that separated the two halves of the fort, Drogon borrowed Muse's favorite lockpicks and proceeded to break them off inside the lock of the gate.
Yep. And you drew the attention of at least one hobgoblin, but managed to smooth that over as well, just in the nick of time before raising any alarm. But not in time to save Muse's favorite lockpicks, unfortunately, which are now resident in the lock of the gate. So that gave Cloud and Glitterbomb enough time to get around, and Cloud actually was industrious enough to take it a step further as she scaled the spiked top log fence of the eastern quarter. And when you landed, what happened, what happened, Cloud?
Natural one.
Natural one. She critically failed her landing, which caused her to crunch heavily, land hard on an ankle, and draw the attention of one such scout on the far parapet. And as that scout began to turn around, that's where he closed off that section until no, it wasn't. It started to yes, sorry. I have the final line I have is, with a mix of shock and concern, Drogon can only watch as the limber feline friend lands hard on the other side of the wall. So as Drogon's looking through the grate trying to pick it, he sees clouds appear and land hard on the other side. The audible crunch of her landing echoing just loud enough for one of the guards on the east tower line to slowly turn and consider the cause of commotion inside the fort walls. And that's where we ended that session, on a little bit of a cliffhanger, as we usually tend to do, I think. So all part of the plan, says Skarshak. Oof, ouch, Kim says, I think, to say the least. Exactly. Those critical misses are always rough and deliciously wonderful at the same time, I would add. In fact,
Actually, as much as I hate them in the moment, I really like it when that stuff like that happens after, not when it's happening. I'm like, no.
Let's stay with that for a minute, because it's an age-old debate, right, amongst TTRPGers that, like, you know, I think I used to, and even when I first started playing as kids, we kind of like we tried to like almost fudge our critical fails, right? Like you try to roll high, and everybody always wants to roll high, and when you roll low, you're like, shitty. But like, I think some of those criticals are some of the best moments of the game, whether they're on the high end or the low end of the spectrum. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Ryan, I see you nodding too. What's your take on that?
I've had conversation with all of my kids about how it's important to let the dice fall where they go and not to fudge their dice. I've caught them quickly moving the dice around at some point or another, and then having to talk to them about how it's important to be honest, but it's also important to know that it's just a game and that fun things happen when things go wrong too. So but there are fail safes in the game too that keep you from, I mean, and at the very worst part, you make a new character.
Yeah,
right.
That's right. One bad roll is never the end of an entire saga, right? Cloud, this started with you two. What's your take on that? Just expand on that a little bit. The criticals on either side of the dice.
Yeah, I can remember when I was younger, just being devastated if you made a really bad roll and it put the party in a bad situation, and maybe another character might die because you didn't get there in time to save them. Those were the devastating ones for me. Like, oh my God, if you failed and somebody else gets hurt. Right. It's just a game, and it's not as much fun if there isn't a chance that you can fail.
Yeah, that's
This
right.
can go horribly wrong.
Yeah,
But, you know, that's part of it.
absolutely. And embracing those and bringing it into the narrative is what really those are the things that no one can plan for, right? Kim saying in Champions, her brother was a teleporter and critically missed and got stuck in a door, and one of his teammates blew up the door with him inside of it. Did he live through that, Kim? That's crazy. But like that's something that you can't write into an adventure. That's something that you all get to experience at the same time together in real time. And I love that because there's this misconception that the GM is really omniscient, and we're not. We're only omniscient in the planning process. That's everything leading up to when the session starts. At that point, we just react, right? Or I feel like that's a good way to do it. I'm not the only DM at this table, though. I'll throw to you, Muse, to talk a little bit about crits and your perspective on that as a storyteller.
Crits, both good and bad, I think are those chances of either one, you can be this legendary hero, or you can be a colossal screw up and laugh about it.
Yeah.
Because no matter what, it's for better or for worse. Even the most epic hero is going to have that moment of oh crap, and depending on the style of character, you can always roll with it and have a lot of fun with it too. Such as Muse having his argument with friend Rope about trying to climb up when he kept not wanting to climb onto the side of the tower.
Yeah.
And literally, it was a back and forth of him arguing with the rope, and even the rope just kind of hanging its head like, oh, dang it.
That's right. And I did mention, don't let me forget about Friend Rope. So, Muse, I'm going to ask you to tell me about Friend Rope and like how it was created. And then I'm going to throw to Angela to talk about crits on either side of the die and what your experience with Friend Rope is. Because I feel like Angela, like Pleasant Doom, or sorry, Glitter Bomb, one of your names, Glitter Bomb has developed an actual relationship with the rope as an NPC, which is really neat too. Sorry, Muse. Yeah, kick it off.
Of course. So one of the tools in the Artificer's kit is infusions and creation of magical items. He spent one of his items on creating I think it's like animate rope or rope of, I think it's living rope. So the mechanics behind it are pretty mundane. You can use it for advantages on climbing, yada yada yada. Muse kind of went with it a little bit more and uses it to rescue his companions from certain doom when they fall. Pick up some of his companions and help haul them over walls, or in the one case, argue with it because he couldn't climb up to save his life.
Right.
But it has kind of become an integral part of the party as well.
Yeah. So there, I'll throw it to Angela as Glitter Bomb. What's your experience with Friend Rope now that Friend Rope is really more of a party member than an asset?
Glitter Bomb didn't exactly have a term for it. She just knows that she crit failed trying to cross some of those rope zip lines and was falling, and all of a sudden this rope just zips down and catches her and just saves her from her death.
Yep.
And hauls her back up. Didn't prevent her from getting sick from the experience, but it hauled her back up to safety, and she started calling it Friend Rope. And just because I don't think anybody could bear to correct her at the time,
It's
they
too
just
cute
all
to ignore.
took up the name Friend Rope with her.
Mm.
But yeah, she doesn't understand that it's just a magical item. She just knows it moves, and so she considers this rope of climbing to be her friend, so it's Friend Rope.
That's right.
But on the other end, it was back in our first near death. That was, I think, my first critical hit of the game. My first nat 20 of the game, I think that was. Where we had Muse and Drogon both down, and Cloud was low on health. Glitter Bomb was the only one with most of her health left, and she was stuck up in a tree with one of those monsters trying to get up to her. So she basically basically cast light on this branch that she was at to startle the monsters.
Mhm.
And we just like, okay, roll the d20 to see how well that works, and rolled a nat 20. No,
Yep.
was it?
Yeah, it was.
Got,
I
got a
gave
nat
I
20.
gave you an intimidation check
Yeah,
for that
so
maneuver. Yeah.
so she succeeded at the intimidation, and then went to do
A
a medicine.
loud noise.
Yeah, loud noise with her Kenku mimicry.
Yep.
And the bright light, and it managed to startle the monsters away. And then she went to do a medicine check on, was it Drogon or Muse? She did a medicine check on one of them,
Yeah.
while Cloud did a medicine check on the other. And I think that was actually another nat 20. I may be remembering it wrong,
Right.
but
I definitely
doesn't
remember the
have
tree. That was
Yeah,
that
there-
second session that we were talking about. Yeah, that was in the second
Yeah,
session. It was almost a TPK.
yeah, nearly a TPK, and there was a nat 20 in one of those where one of them, like, she doesn't have any natural healing abilities, and I was just looking to stabilize, rolled a nat 20, and just managed to accidentally heal.
Yeah, that's right. That's amazing. So that, like, who can deny those moments, right, when those crits happen on
Yeah.
either side of the dice, and this, I can't believe like your infused rope muse became like an integral. It's like it reminds me of, and I think this may have even come up with this. It's like the rug in Aladdin, the flying carpet in Aladdin. It's like carpet has its own personality, almost has its own presence, and now a history with the party, which is really cool. So there we are on the other side of the quarter of the fort, deep behind enemy lines, surrounded by goblins and hobgoblins and who knows what else. And Cloud has now drawn the attention of the goblins. Ultimately, as the rest of the party are trying to make their way in, suddenly the ruse is made. The goblins become aware, and an all-out tooth and nail battle breaks out. In the midst of that battle, the chieftain made himself known. You did identify that Devin was actually there in a cell that is moored to a wagon, which is what they've been transporting him around with, basically. That battle went extremely poorly for the companions, and in fact, it was our second near TPK of the game. In fact, at the end of it, and an inopportune fireball, all but one of the party members was left alive, and that's where we ended that session, because I'm apparently an absolute sadist. So we left it there. But in between, we discussed something, and it's important for me to bring this up because as a DM, one of my table rules is that I don't allow challenges to the rule in the middle of the session because nobody wants to sit at a table and argue about rules. But the only thing I'll allow is when a challenge could... we can talk about anything after the session. Anything you want to talk about, clarifications, rule session, absolutely, doors always open, but not in session because nobody wants to spend game time, hemming and hawing over little rules. The only exception is where and if a rule calling or ruling might immediately result in the death of a player. And in this case, it almost immediately resulted in the death of 75% of the players at the table. So we discussed it, but we just called the session anyway. So over the next little while, you guys actually did a lot of talking. I got the impression of comparing notes and everything, and you guys brought to me that I don't even remember exactly what it was. Oh, it was the concentration. So this chieftain was flying at the time that he cast this fireball down at the group, but he had also taken damage, and I didn't roll the concentration throw. So the mechanic in Dungeons and Dragons is that if you're casting a spell that requires concentration, you take damage. You have to make a save to maintain the concentration on that spell, or the spell fizzles. I won't go into the details beyond that because they're not important in this case. But I hadn't called that, and thusly a few other spells were cast that ultimately led to the near death of the entire party. When you guys, Muse, do you remember what my call was when we started the next session then to kind of rectify that?
Concentration checks. You succeeded on one, you failed on the second.
That's right. He had to make 2 concentration checks. The first one succeeded, as we all, myself included, like anxiously watched the dice. Because if he had succeeded both, then everything stands, and that leaves Muse on his own with the rest of the party essentially dead. I'll pause you and keep you in more suspense for just a moment as we say hello to Britt. Hello, Britt, and welcome. Hi, hopping on for a few and know nothing about D&D, but wanted to stop and say hello. Well, welcome. You're in the right place. We're talking about the current actual play that we're in the middle of. We're doing a quick story recap because we're just coming back off of hiatus, and we're coming back into section with season 2 and a brand new story arc on Wednesday, or the continuation of a story arc. So I hope you'll join us. us for that next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. But for today, please don't hesitate to ask any questions that you might have about what we're discussing or anything that you want to know. And ask the cast anything that you want about their characters as well. We'll be taking those all the way through. And when we get to the end, I'll do another call for questions. So if you missed your question, just ask us again at the end. We'll make sure we have time to get back to them. So now this tooth and nail battle raged on. The chieftain had failed his second attempt, and the funny thing is, I remember I have the part that I wrote, and it goes like this: tooth and nail. Sorry, make sure I have the. Yes, there was this. Tooth and nail, a vicious battle rages in the east wing of the Goblin Fort. Thankfully, between the absent-mindedness of the Goblin cohort, that was probably a metaphor for me at the time, and the ongoing entertainment outside the main barracks, the majority of the Goblin tribe remained unaware. One by one, the party deftly made their way around the outer perimeter of the fort, eliminating the Goblin scouts and Overwatch until finally all coming to rest inside the east block, just in time to see Cloud attempting to free Devon from his cage, because Cloud had actually approached Devon and tried to unlock the manacles in the cell door that held him captive. Just attempting to free Devon from his cage just in time to draw the attention of a small but savage group of hulking hobgoblin marshals. Together, they surely would have handled these few hobs their defeat. However, the arrival of their purported superior, a spell-wielding, unmerciful brute of a goblin, turned the fates. With swift command of the battlefield, the chieftain and his henchfolk gave challenge to the intruders and whittled away at the party as the tide began to turn. The leader invoked a deadly incantation as the scorching sear of blazing embers faded in the wake of his cataclysmic fireballs. All but one of the heroes had fallen. Now, as the battle rages on and the host of goblins have finally been rallied to the aid of their chieftain, Muse stares down the barrel of his gleaming flintlock weapon, heart pulsing, and the fate of his new companions resting squarely on the success or failure of his next move. No pressure. How did I write all this? Like, gross pressure. What an awful thing to do to somebody. We return to the grapple that holds the group on the edge of death. Time seems to slow to a halt as Muse blocks the world out around him, desperate for a moment of clarity, a sign, or even a miracle. Muse, what do you do? And do you remember what you did in that moment?
Oh yeah. So Muse was up. It was him staring down the big bad, and he.
So are all
says a
of
prayer
you
for
going to
Lord
come
that,
play
if you're out there, or if
VALHEIM?
there's any spark of you left in the last word, I could definitely use it right about now. And pulls the trigger, lands a crit.
That's right. He invoked his former mentor and that power for what and crit on it. That's what I mean. These crits seem to come up for us in the craziest times. Crit. I failed the concentration check. Totally turned the trajectory of the battle. In that moment, I don't even remember how you guys got back up, but you did. Do you guys remember how that was turned for those of you who are downed? Oh, no, he wasn't able to cast the fireball because of that failed concentration check. So it retconned the fireball, which completely turned everything around. Muse, again, like just making that Hail Mary shot. And then in a better position, you guys were able to thwart the rest of your party coming in. You defeated the Goblin Chieftain and thusly freed Devon from captivity. You in a very clutch move, then you still had to escape as the ogre came smashing through his shackles on the other side of the wall. He actually bashed through the wall, came after you guys. You scurried up the tower, which is another flurry of tooth and nail checks. Finally made your way up to the tower, and just as you had crested it, I think Drogon, was it you who fell back into the fort? One of you guys had slipped and fallen back in.
Yep.
Muse just managed to get back up, and as the ogre made it to the tower, smashing into the tower, did a shit ton of damage, blistered the tower, but you guys now on the other side rode it to the end, crashing into the field and sending you scurrying outward into the woods in freedom, chased by the arrows and the battle calls of the goblin, who now knew that their biggest enemy was not the companions who had escaped with the pretty lady's quarry, but in fact the ire and the displeasure of the pretty lady herself at some point. No doubt waiting in the wings. So that had ended this particular foray into the fort as you were thrust back into the Cormanthor, but this time with Devin in tow. So I'm going to pause there really quickly because we have a number of really great shout outs to give here. Thank you so much, Polly, for the bits. Such a good idea. I'm going to borrow that. Cheers. Which one was that? That was a little while ago. So what idea did you like there that is going to help you out, Polly? Glad to hear that. Vegas with the 300-bit drop. Thank you very much, Trudge, with the tryhards. So all of you are going to come play Valheim as I continue to build a base. I know Pleasant's on board. And, of course, the rest of you are more than welcome if you want to join us in Valheim. I'll leave that to you. Hit me up after if you want to do that. I mean, you guys, like the cast. Yes, you guys on the call.
You don't have the game.
That'd be in there. You don't have it? Oh, well, we'll have to talk after. But that's all right because we got lots of D&D ahead of us anyway. Yes, so thank you very much for your support, gang. Don't forget, ask your questions. We'll be happy to. He's bored with playing with just me. I doubt it. Muse needs sleep badly. Yeah, we got there. No, yeah, you probably don't want to play Valheim then because that will translate into 3 o'clock in the morning. I promise you. That thing's a time vampire on the best way possible. As you guys make your way back into the Cormanthor now, you find your way back up the trail. You narrowly escape a couple of patrols that had chased you into the woods to somehow hopefully recover the now lost prize of their pretty lady and whatever whatever fallout was going to come after that. With Devin in tow, the objective is secured, but the road ahead is still long and filled with dangers. After narrowly escaping the defeat at the hands of the Goblin tribe and devastating spell-throwing wildling grouse, the companions thwarted the chieftain's plans, handing him brutal defeat in return. Chased by the arrows of the tribe and the rampaging cries of their pet ogre, the party stole off into the embrace of the Cormanthor once again, returning to the Overlook before their mortal bodies could carry them no further. In a rare moment of peace, the bonds of friendship are further forged as the 4 adventurers and their trusty companion Pio learn more and more to put their stock in the trust and companionship of one another. So tell me a little bit about the break that you took then. So you made camp on the way up. I'm just going to take a quick look at my notes. I don't see anything about you guys finding Bartimer Bandyful, so presumably he's just gone. Who knows what fate had befallen him.
No.
But you did take a minute to make camp. You did take a minute to make camp, though, and there's some really special exchanges. I'm going to start with Pleasant. We'll give a breather here because this got pretty deep in the best way possible. Pleasant, what did you do there? And as you were kind of making camp.
That one I don't have the clearest memory of that particular moment, but I pretty much declared the rest of the party my flock. This because Kenku need flocks, and she was. All she had before them was Cloud, and so she just you're my flock.
That's right. And you foraged. You got food for the flock like a Kenku would. What delicious.
Nobody seemed to want to share my bugs except for Keo, but
What delicious culinary did you manage to forage for your new flock in the woods of the Cormanthor?
I did find some berries and nuts, I believe, and also, like I said, some nice juicy bugs.
Grubs, insects, all the other good things. A true offering of companionship from the Kenku in the troop. I want to talk about Drogon and Muse because this is where your craft started to come together, and you started to work on something very specific and special. Muse, why don't you tell us a little bit because it's your schematic. And why you enlisted Drogon to help with it.
All right. So Muse had come up with the idea to basically create a magical shotgun, working off of the concept of the last word. Mm-hmm. He had enlisted Drogon to help craft the barrel for the shotgun, and with the aid of Drogon and I believe Glitter Bomb. They created a focusing crystal that he could actually pump magic into to create basically an arcane blunderbuss.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So go ahead.
And of course, he'd shared these designs with Drogon and kind of forged. And between the two of them, they had forged their first kind of project together.
Yeah. And this is the first time we got to see those two very different disciplinary crafts working together. We got to see Drogon as a cleric of the forge, right? Using those kind of special faith-bound gifts to mold metal in a way that goes beyond, anvil and hammer strike. But Drogon also crafted something else. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Drogon? And when the time is right, tell us why, Cloud, tell us why it was special to you.
Drogon had a strange conversation with Cloud as we were walking through the woods coming up to the camp during that time where Cloud had asked Drogon how long he had been free, and that kind of stuck out to him because he hadn't. He started to understand that there was something about what Cloud had gone through before that was why she saw the world the way she did. So he also noticed that she was extremely upset about Devin being in that cage, and so he made her a kind of a skeleton key as a kind of a peace offering too. Drogon and Cloud kind of butted heads in the very beginning with the goblin about how to deal with the goblin that lost her tongue, and so I think that was kind of a peace offering to Cloud in a way, and also just Drogon was also starting to feel like he'd been on his own for so long, and maybe this was a group of friends that he hadn't had in a really long time. So he thought that would be appropriate, and so he made her a little skeleton key as a little lockpick kind of thing for her.
It's awesome. So she would never feel like a captive again. And Cloud, you can either give us a one-word answer or go into as much details. How did that make Cloud feel?
Well, it was really touching, honestly, because when she was failing miserably when she was trying to get Devin out, right? I mean, she was trying so hard to pick the lock, trying to get him out, and it was devastating to her that she could not get him out. She was bawling her eyes out and just like, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. And she just couldn't get him out. So she was amazed that somebody had even noticed that, first of all. And she was really embarrassed about the conversation when she realized how stupid it was for her to ask, how long have you been free? It was like, just the look on his face. She knew, oh no, I'm not normal. And then she was like, never mind, nothing, never mind. And she just walked away, and that she thought that's the end of that. And to get this gift, and I think she even says when he gives it to her, nobody's ever given me anything. My first gift.
That's right.
And it was a tearjerker in the moment, but yeah, it was. Nobody's ever going to take that key away from her. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It definitely made a true relationship there for sure. I think she was already feeling that. They had argued about 2 separate goblins. The first goblin and another
Was
goblin.
it 2?
That's right, because there was the one in the bear
and another
trap
goblin that they had found in a bear trap.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
And you were like, no, he's going to go tell on us. And she was like, we're not hurting this goblin. It's not happening.
Yeah.
We set him free too, and he promised to not come back. And she decided, we're giving him the benefit of the doubt, and you're not doing anything about it. So
it's amazing.
yeah, there'd been 2 little arcs between them, so this had changed that almost completely.
And isn't that funny how like the arc that comes so honestly from each of your backstories, plus the experiences that you had in the game, which are totally organic. Like there's no way you can write that. I mean, you can write it, but we don't in TTRPGs. We just live in it, and this is what happens. And then that like the fumbling with the lock on Devin and the struggle and despair that you felt, like being set up by that moment in a collective narrative that is happening in real time. It's like, it's fucking crazy. That's crazy. It just makes for these like really awesome. And you know what? You guys are so good at being in your characters to the point where these things happen naturally, right? And they're just like perfect. That's better than
You
anything.
helped out a lot with that. You asked us to start saying I and me instead of talking about our characters
Right,
as
right.
separate entities. We started saying I do this and I me and then I was like, oh, it's me and I, and so it was hard not to bawl my eyes out when that gift was given. It's so unexpected.
That's all right. Thank you for that. I forgot, because that's one of my tenets with all of my tables is to encourage players to start using first person. Like, I do this, I do that, rather than saying like Cloud walks over to that, because it forces you a little by little every time you play to be that character more. And it's just like you guys embraced it without any question. And even like it sometimes takes me like weeks of sessions or months of sessions to get a player to that point, but you guys had it like the minute we said, hey, let's try this, you guys all just jumped into it, and the story has benefited tremendously for that. So that's awesome. But like I said, it helps that, you know, when you put that kind of work into your characters and your backstory, you've already done the homework to be there, right? That's amazing.
I think that's essential. If you really want to have those emotional moments, you have to know who your character is.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we're going through this, I think this is really valuable. And we're going beyond the story. We're talking about our experiences as players and game masters, and what it's like to do this and why it's special. If you guys like this and you're watching, then I don't see any reason why we wouldn't want to do more of these. You know, we can do more round tables with the cast. Maybe that's something, you know, I'll talk to you guys about. I don't want to put you on the spot here, but if you're down with it, maybe once every other month or something, we can just do a round table, or maybe at the end of every arc, we make this a regular thing. I think this is it's been really helpful for me too. Right, so like, because like like I said, DMs are not omniscient. Our all-knowingness ends when we finish prepping for the next session, right? Everything else is, we're just in it. We're all in it together. So yeah, that's really cool. And so if you're enjoying it, let us know. We'll do more like this. Yeah, so that was really special. That for me is one of those moments in a game that I'll not soon forget. You know, we play a lot of campaigns over the years, and I'm sure from each one of them we can pull a couple of those moments that just burn in our memories. And that one for me is, yeah, definitely one of those. So, as you made your way back through Bridge Tree now, having recollected on the road, everybody a little bit better off, you now were faced with the obstacle of getting back through Bridge Tree, which you had not only completely turned figuratively upside down with the ruse that Muse had concocted, but now you had to go back through this checkpoint knowing full well that all the goblins there are suddenly aware of what's happened and not likely to think that ruse is going to work a second time. So as you made your way back there, I believe Glitterbomb and Pio, the befriended goblin, kind of led the scout for that. So Glitterbomb, what do you remember as you returned back through Bridge Tree towards Dampshire to return Devon home?
I believe I used disguise self and had Pio teach me some goblin phrases to make the goblins think that we were, you know, one of theirs, to at least get, you know, kind of clear the path to get as few enemies in our way as possible. And when things started turning south, Mage Hand made an appearance again, and yeah, weaponized Mage Hand.
Sorry, weaponized Mage Hand. My favorite collection of words in the D&D universe. Weaponized Mage Hand.
Well, just, you know, Mage Hand tries to steal a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Goblin notices, tries to take it back, and you just kind of tug of war for a little bit there, and just on the edge of the platform, and then Mage Hand just like whoop, and down goes the goblin.
Classic. I love it. Classic bully move right there. Just pull. Fine, you can have it. And that was one goblin out of the picture. So then the rest of you made your way back, but this time a little bit more weathered by the newfound battles along the road, and you were better equipped this time to tackle the goblin tribe, and no way out of it. This time it did erupt into full-scale battle on your way down Bridge Tree, if I'm not mistaken. So anyone want to add anything as you fought your way back down to ground level and onward towards Dampshire? I think that was probably the only real cut and dry combat that we had, aside from the first two at the beginning of this arc. That was the only one that was just like a full-scale battle down the tree. But ultimately, we're here to live to tell the tale. So you made your way through there. Devon, no worse for wear. He's seen some pretty crazy things on the road now, and you continued onward to Dampshire. And when you finally did return to Dampshire, the village itself was nearly empty, yet the embellished chairs still stood in the center. A lone figure who you recognize as Gildas Strong, still wearing the elegant blue suit you met him in, sits in one of the chairs, head in his hands. The man hears you approaching, revealing bloodshot and puffy eyes as he looks at you, takes a moment before he sees Devon. But when he does, a large smile forms on his face. Gildas stands, walks up to Devon with outstretched arms, and takes him in his grasp. The two embrace for nearly a full minute before Gildas looks at you. "Thank you," he whispers through eyes now welling with tears of joy. "Thank you." Then Gildas steps back from Devon and begins to softly sing a song of love for you, a wish of joy and peace for you. My heart is yours until the end. As the song trailed off into the evening air on your safe arrival back to Dampshire, the two embraced in the evening, leaving you back to the area where you started, at least together, not so much individually, and thus concluded the main part of that story in our first season. Now, you guys will have to remind me, once you returned then, you did get the evening to kind of collect and started new in Dampshire. And what do you remember then about your return to Dampshire and the next day as the sun rose over this renewed Hamlet's village?
What we said happened that evening.
Yeah.
As Glitterbomb went to a tavern for the first time, and Muse decided to
There
treat
you
her
go.
to some beverages
Yeah.
and convince her that they would give her extra feathers.
That's right. He'd see that. I forgot about that. He convinced her
And
that
she
drinking would
wanted
give her
so
extra
much to
feathers.
be. She wanted so much to be extra floofy.
That's awesome.
She was quite
Added
floofy
to
by
the
the
floof.
end.
So the ruse
Yeah.
continues as Muse spins a tail for Glitterbomb to get extra plumage by drinking her face off at the tavern, and you did. Yeah, and what happened?
And then there was morning drinking, and while Cloud had other things happening, and Drogon went back to the forge.
That's right. And another touching moment ensued. Cloud, tell us a little bit.
Oh, Devon. It was it Devon or Gildas?
It was
It
Devon.
was Devon, right?
Devon.
Yeah. Yep.
Devon came and sort of took me aside and gave me a beautiful, what I think is a family heirloom of some sort. It's in the shape of a snake that wraps around your arm, and told me that I was now part of the family, and I would always have a soft place to land, basically, and that was crazy touching. Like, I don't know why you want to make me cry, Brad.
I don't
but
know. I don't want to make myself cry either, but I'm a big suck.
You're working it. I know, at least you and I know for sure, you and
Yeah,
I in that
we're a
last
sure
episode,
thing.
both of us kept on tearing up, and we were like,
Yeah.
okay. That was something, especially when you were describing Gildas and Devon together. We were all like, oh my God, why are you doing this?
Well, that's the beauty of it. It's the investment, right? You walk these miles and you
Yeah.
do get attached to it, and it creates very real moments. Sorry, go on. Yeah.
No, that's and that made all the difference I mean, go from having from nothing to a baby sister, and then a whole family that are invested in your well-being and want you there and are so kind. And as we all explore her history, Cloud's history, you'll see why all that stuff is so incredibly important to her.
Yeah.
And alien, even.
Yeah, absolutely. It's and just finding a way for her to belong was a byproduct of all of this that I don't think anybody saw, right? I have the description too. It's It's an item. I'll tell you this now because you don't know, but I won't give you any specifics yet. I do have them. I just have to make them pretty for you. So it's called the Bronzework Serpentine. And the description is, it's a beautiful and ornate bronze lace coil that wraps around one forearm. It's a sturdy piece of jewelry grafted with tempered bronze in the shape of a coiling serpent, with 2 points of polished jade for its eyes and fangs where the head rests on the back of the wearer's hands. And I'll give you this written out in an item entry, so don't sweat that. Yeah, and then when you have a little bit more time to explore it, you'll understand how special it is beyond just the storied elements too. So, yeah, very
Excited
nice.
about it.
Things were a little bit more hectic for Drogon on his return to Damshire. Do you remember why, Drogon?
Well, Silo was going nuts in the forge.
Yep.
She did not appreciate being thrown into headsmithy.
She was pretty pissed.
Role.
Yeah. She was pissed with Tony. I mean Drogon.
Yeah. And then at some point, Glitter and Cloud come back in, both 10 sheets to the wind, and won't leave them alone about whatever it was
Cloud was
Muse had
okay.
told them.
Cloud was happy. Glitter was drunk.
Glitter's drunk. Yeah.
Cloud
you.
was basically just Cloud.
Yeah. Yeah. Glitter was making things a little bit worse. Do you remember why, Glitter? And I think Muse was part of this too.
Yes. Yes, they were left at the tavern, and Glitter just wanted to be extra floofy, and Muse was like, "Here, we'll go get some more, and we'll have Drogon see how fluffy you are because he's an expert at floof levels."
Yeah.
Assessment.
Floof assessment.
Assessment.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
Didn't you give us something to chase though? You gave us a toy to play with, right?
Yeah. Do you remember Muse?
That's why the chaotic image I have in my head
That's right.
of
Yeah,
Cloud just running through the place trying to get the thing that Muse said, "Here, chase this," and she was like, "Okay."
And Glitter was chasing Cloud because why not? And Pio got in on that.
So Glitter and Muse are now drunk and belligerent, and they go back to the forge to bring Drogon in on it. As sorry, you muted, Drogon?
I am. One second.
Yeah. Oh, okay, sorry. I thought you were talking to us. Yeah. So here we have this train that's been created because Drogon is trying desperately to settle Scylla down as the forge is in disarray. Her boss has gone off to have a good time adventuring and left her with all the work. Muse and Glitterbomb show up, drunk and belligerent. Muse spins up one of his clockwork animals and sets it loose in the forge, which triggers Cloud's feline instincts to just go after it, bounding around the forge, making an already messy situation even worse, as Glitter's just like throwing more of a tantrum into this in her own drunken state, showcasing her new plumage and adding further fuel to the fire. So a pretty good wrap there on your first full day back in Damshire. And there was another kind of special exchange, Muse, and you'll have to stop me if we haven't gotten here yet, but I'm pretty sure we covered this as well, as Pio checked in with her, who she views as her mentor and leader now. Do you recall that?
There were two big moments. Oh yeah, there were two big moments. That Muse had when they returned to Damshire. First one was, of course, between Muse and Pio. That Pio was originally hesitant on returning back to Damshire because, well, humans and goblins aren't notoriously the most friendly of interactions, and Muse said. Muse gave Pio a scrap of his own, red scarf, saying, "Well, you're officially one of the blood scarves. They got a problem with you, they're going to have a problem with me." And reassured her that Pio is going to be just as welcome in Damshire as he will be.
Yep.
The other big moment for Muse when they returned was he had thought about one of Lorelai's lessons, being a creator or being a destroyer. The arcane shotgun he had created with Drogon it's a weapon. He was going to destroy with it. And he had remembered this scrappy cat that often came around Lorelai's forge that nobody actually ever expected anything out of this, and this cat had always managed to somehow outsmart, outthink, or just outbrawl whatever had come for it. And Muse thought that was kind of unique, so he had talked to Drogon about create a new creation, which is when Muse changed his subclass from artillerist to battlesmith,
Right.
which resulted in the creation of the clockwork cat known as Freya.
Yep.
Which is the other big project that him and Drogon had begun work on.
Yep. Awesome. So as this new path unfurls and really kind of changes Muse's growth, so too must the tools change. And I thought that was a really, really great segue. And we're going to see this new construct debut as we return to session as well. In the meantime, in the exchange with Pio, the scrap that she returned to you also has a title and a description. So this is now called, and I'll do the same. We'll have an item card for it. It's called the Title of Reclamation. Yeah, and the description is, this ragged blood red scarf is similar to the ones that Muse and his companions used to wear in their previous operations. He had gifted this scarf to Pio when he rescued the young goblin from abjection at the hands of her tribe and the Nightingale. As they adventured together, her resolve and dedication were suffused into the wrap, and part of her essence will always remain. But you'll have to learn more when we come back into session.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
Exciting. That's a good one.
lots of things coming together, and thusly we concluded that segment and the first arc of our story. So I'm excited to see where the investigation continues as we learn more about this overarching plot and the machinations of the pretty lady, or this nightingale, as we say. But before then, a celebration is set to take place as Gildas and Devin continue to make plans for their union. The former strangers in town, now purportedly the guests of honor at such a celebration. So we'll come back into session with that, because we haven't done that yet, right? That hasn't happened yet, right?
No.
My worst fear is that I'm going to play through this amazing big part of things, and you guys are going to be like, we did that last session. I don't know. That's my version of like a DM nightmare waking up from. Like, all my stuff is, all my prep for that session was something we did last game. So good to know. So spoiler/teaser, hopefully more teaser than spoiler. So again, we're going to open up to questions. If you have any questions about what we're doing or the characters, ask anything to the cast, go ahead and drop them in chat now. If you have a question that we didn't answer as we were going through, by all means, go ahead, let us know. In the meantime, we'll do another quick introduction around the table. I'll just go. I'll go name. Give me your character, who you are, and we'll just make it really quick around the table to refresh for folks. I'm Brad, of course. Baz, the one half of the Baz and Bigly Dynamic Duo. I'm the DM for this session. Just Drawn Radio, aka Dustin.
Of course, I can be found on Twitter at Just Drawn Radio. I am playing Muse, the Battlesmith Artificer, with his trusty companion mechanical cat Freya. And otherwise, I run a comic book review radio show, and I'm a writer for a program called The Graveyard Tapes. It's an honor to be back and, seeing what new trouble I can talk us into and out of.
Awesome. So excited to keep going with you. Let's throw to Nikki, a.k.a. Nerdy Chicken.
Hi, I'm Nikki. I have my own nerdy shop called nerdychicken.ca. You can go on there and see all kinds of awesome nerdy things. You can find me on Twitter at chickenlynerd. I am a tabaxi monk named Cloud, and I love being here. That's all I got. Oh, and also, I do characters on the Graveyard Tapes.
Hey.
You should go listen to those.
We're going to have to get a throw for that, I think, because there are a couple engaged in that now. On that note, let's throw over to Pleasant Doom, a.k.a. Angela.
Hey, yeah, my name is Angela at Pleasant Doom on the Twitterverse. I
like this pose.
I am one of the hosts of Dungeons, Signings, and Dorks, which is a podcast available where you find your podcast. I guess I should also plug that I also do a character voice. And Dustin is laughing because he's just waiting for 0 Day to pop out. You know what's gonna happen, right?
That's awesome. Ryan, aka Dads and
Can't
Dragons.
do my character because she's just mean.
Oh, I have plans for Madeline.
Ryan at Dads and Dragons.
She's
What's
just a
good?
mean
Tell
person.
us a little bit about
Yeah,
you.
you can
Fine.
you find me on Twitter at Dads and Dragons. You can check out my podcast at dadsdragons.com. Or just come and hang out with us here every other week. That'll be fun too.
That's right.
And yeah, I play games and I've done it for decades now, and I'm excited to get into our next season of this too. It'll be lots of fun. This has been a great group.
Awesome. Yeah, it really has been special. I'm excited to continue it. It's been long awaited, and I know we're all happy to get back at the table. I'm Brad, aka Baz. You can find me at Baz and Bigley, one word, pretty much everywhere on the internet. Do follow us on Twitter for updates. We're going to have a lot more great stuff coming out over the Twitters. We're going to have show highlights and more great plans from the cast and myself about this show as we go forward, too. So, Skarshack asked in chat, have any of you gamed together before taking part in this group /stream? I haven't. This is the first. Well, I mean, actually, let me kick this one off, because when I put this group, I put out the call for people to come, and I knew more than anything. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, okay, I'll take that. More than anything, I knew the type of player that I wanted. I knew the type of person that I wanted to participate with, and I always do, and that's why we have this amazing community that we have, because it's just we're like-minded, we have similar values, we appreciate the people that we're involved with, and I think that that's something that resonates with everybody here on screen. So it was just kind of like I didn't really do like a big casting call like you kind of see. I kind of threw out there on Twitter like, hey, I want to set this up, looking for some folks who are hopelessly devoted to character, focus on the narrative, enjoy exploration, combat, and role play in equal parts, yada yada yada. And then I had a really good some really good feedback, actually, and some great participation from applicants. We had a couple of people who were very close who kind of came, dropped in, dropped out, but realistically, when I was going through those, and I would say interviewing, it's like having conversations to get to know the people who are interested in playing this game. Everybody here really stuck out to me. Nikki and I had actually a number of exchanges on Twitter before that. So I think if anything, we had kind of had a lot of back and forth. Pleasant, I think I knew most of you from Twitter at least a little bit. Pleasant and I had some back and forth when I was producing a lot of we'll say like small piece content for D&D, which I want to get back to. So we were familiar, I guess, on that level, but this is the first time we really started to come together. And honestly, I think it was most of you were here for the first tech test, and we had a couple of different faces at the table, and some of them dropped out, and rather than replace them, I just stuck with us four who were I think it was one or two other people who had some scheduling conflicts, but rather than replace them up to a table of 6, I was like, let's just stick with this 4, because I felt like we were so tight. Do you remember we did this trial thing? We did a quick session 0 where we talked about table etiquette, we talked about the style of the game, and then we played through a little kind of throwaway scenario. I say throwaway because we knew that it wasn't going to impact the game. This was not really part of it, but you were your characters. We played through. Remember, there's that camp thing, and then we did a little combat just to get an idea of how things flow in Roll20. You know what I mean? So that was how it started from my perspective. Just Ron, what's your perspective on that? I mean, have we gamed together, or what was let's say, I mean, I know, so I guess I've answered it. We hadn't gamed together before this, but what was in a couple of words, what was your first impression when you started to play with this group?
Thank God you lowered the gate to lowered the standards to let me in.
Oh my God, you're always so hard on yourself. Stop it.
Too much. That's all good though. Noble.
Okay, I'll actually quit acting like an idiot for 30 seconds.
Only 30 though. I'm gonna set the timer.
Fine. It was I'm probably the most. I'm familiar with anybody. I saw the post on Twitter. I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm forever DM. There's a chance to be a player. I'm gonna jump on it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, trying to avoid using profanity because of Angela. So I'm. You have to bear with me a little while I retool my words. Great DM and great characters and a great group of great interactions between everybody, and that's really what the most fun of doing a D&D game is all about.
Yeah.
And of course, just that great interactions between everybody is also why I kind of even said to everybody, "Hey, anyone would get on this harebrained idea called the graveyard tapes?" And just because that interaction in the game, I knew that hey, these are some awesome players. So, and that is the most intelligent thought I can have because the triple red eye I drank is starting to expire.
It's wearing out. All right, it's almost run its course. All right, we won't keep you for too long, but I do want to speak to that. You mentioned that's exactly it, and like you've now continued to work with some of our cast here on another great project called the Graveyard Tapes, which I'd love to hear more about. We'll make some time for that too, in another session, because like I said, I won't going to throw you into that right now, but I mean, it just goes to say that like how difficult it is to find this kind of chemistry. So when you see it, you know, like, okay, I want to keep working with these people. Is that fair? I don't want to make that assumption for you, but it's like, yeah, right.
You've said it much smarter than I can right now.
But I get that. Like, it's so, and it speaks back to, you know, when we were sourcing this, when we were putting this group together, that's exactly it. Like, I was ready to have to go through a lot of that, like, hard stuff, like dealing with people who came in with an ego, or dealing with one person in this group who's just going to be an asshole, you know what I mean? And it's really, you know, it's forever DMs or sometimes GMs, as some of us are, that's always in the back of your mind, is that fear, like, what's going to be the problem at this table, right? Like, what am I going to have to deal with? Because we want it to be fun, we don't want to deal with that stuff. And thankfully, like, we could not have asked for a better upfront chemistry than we have here, and that's such a gift to not have to go through that, like, where I got to pull somebody out and say, hey, listen, like, I need you to tone this down because it's disrupting things. Like, I've never even come close to having that issue, and I don't expect to. Like, it's just, this is like the group that I've always wanted, and here we are. We just all got lucky on that. I'm sure of it.
I don't know how you managed to pull this many people together with no ego at all.
Yeah,
I don't have any.
Sometimes sometimes we need a little more ego. I think we should all share an ego, because I think sometimes we're all together. We'll pass it around. We'll take turns. Nikki, what was
we just let Muse have it.
Yeah, you might need to hold that conch more often, but there you go. Like I said, there's nobility in it. Nikki, what was your first impressions on it?
So my first impression was absolute. I was a little nervous after session 0. To be honest, I cannot remember what it was that was making me nervous. It was like I was thinking, I don't know. Then when we came back with this group, it was like a concrete decision. I was like, okay, no, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
And also that's partially me, because I've never played with other people. I've only played D&D with the same group since I was 15.
Really?
So this was my first foray into playing D&D outside that group. So I was pretty nervous.
Yeah, we're so lucky for that change, honestly. Yeah, so that's really an honor. I think we can all be happy about that. That's very cool. And you were a barbarian. Do you remember? You're a barbarian in session 0. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't imagine this game without
barbarian,
Cloud.
and I was like, no,
Yeah.
doesn't fit.
Didn't feel it.
The barbarian thing doesn't fit. So no.
Go with your gut, man.
As soon as I started to throw her actual history together, it was like, barbarian, no.
Yeah. Awesome. Angela, what were your first impressions when you jumped in?
Oh gosh, I hardly even remember my first impressions. But no, it's kind of one of those things, like, you hear about these groups, like other podcasters saying, oh yeah, I had this one group and things just fell apart. Oh yeah, there was this one problem player and it just ruined everything. It's like nerve-wracking. But then I had only been playing Dungeons and Dragons myself for a couple of years with this massive group, and I was like, I need more of this. I need more stories. But you know, I got another small group, but it was kind of hit or miss as to whether they were playing. It's like, I want a solid game. I've got this idea for this character. I want to play this character. And then just you open it up, it's like, well, I've been watching the stream. He seems like a good guy. Seems like he's gonna try to do his best to be a good DM, and like, well, okay, why not? Let's give it a shot. play with other people. And yeah, I couldn't be happier with how this group formed up. It's like, yeah, everybody got really, really attached to their characters really fast. And like in my own home game, it took some of the players a while to get attached to their characters, and we're, we're still working out some weird character things every now and then. It's like, come on. And these are people that I've known for many, many years, and so to have my home game, like, yeah, we have some issues every now and then come to this one, and it's like the characters just click together just like that. It's like it's wild.
Amazing. I'm glad to hear that continued theme that like it's kind of first in that type of environment. And how strange that like our first experience playing with other people is at a time like this when we have to do it virtually, but like we can do it virtually. You know what I mean? Like that's, I think in D&D and the TTRPG community, this like virtual connection has been so commonplace because we always have played with people all around the world. I mean, through these like new platforms and stuff like that. I think that's a great silver lining for us to focus on, and when we can have it. So that's amazing. Thank you, Angela. Ryan, rounding it out and bringing it home. What was your kind of first impression for it, and how did you feel about it?
Yeah, my first thoughts when you brought this up on Twitter and I emailed you about it was that, either this is going to be a lot of fun or it's going to last like one session and then never happen again. So I'm glad that it kept going. I, like you just barely said, I had been missing playing a lot. And there was a group that we do play with, and we haven't been able to get together in now over a year. And so just the fact that I got the chance to play again was something I was really excited about, and to be able to find a way to make all this work through all this technology that has come across. I'm not going to put like, this is a silver lining of the pandemic. It's not, there's no like silver linings, but I'm glad that this happened. And I hope that this is something that carries forward, that people can get together more like this and have these experiences and stuff. It's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. I was just looking up there because I wanted to check and see that when you said like people you've known for years and stuff like that, in May we will have been playing together for a year. How crazy is that?
Nice.
It's not that far away. So after that we can say almost 2 years, and then we can say we've been playing together for years.
For years.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, but isn't that funny how the time goes by and how you meet people, you make very real connections through a game like this. I don't feel like there's a screen between us at all. You know what I mean? So that's very cool. Yay. Yep. And now we get to continue that story next week when we come back into session with season 2. So I hope that the rest of you will join us as well, because it's only going to get better from here. And that is probably not something I should have said on the internet, because now I've set the bar. But I really do believe that as we continue to explore it, it will continue to expand. And the great ingredients that you've all brought to it will only continue to cook and formulate and concoct, or maybe I'll do the concocting. But there you go. I don't know. What do you guys think? Anything else that you want to add before we sign out for the evening? Everybody good?
I'm just really.
I love you guys.
Thanks everybody for watching. It's been fun.
I'm so glad the game is coming back. I'm so glad.
Me too. Me too.
Oh yeah, I gotta start trying to learn how to do that again.
I know. I think I do this like amorphous, globulous. This is how I used to draw hearts when I was a kid too. I think everybody just thought I was devoid of love because I never knew that shape. There you
It was
go.
like nice on one side and then like weird on the other.
We'll need an emote for a amorphous blobby heart, and that'll be our signature.
That's right. An actual heart.
An actual. Yeah, it's like pulsating.
I will.
We have to add comic relief at the end of this. This is amazing.
Yep.
I said, I think at least a couple hours each. We've almost gone the full length of the stream, so that's good training for us too. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us, spending time with us tonight, and getting to know or re-familiarize yourselves with the story, as have we, and the amazing characters and amazing players that we get to do it with every other week. So keep in mind, every second Wednesday we are playing through this amazing story as it continues, and that starts with next Wednesday, So mark it in your calendars, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Time. This amazing crew returns with a new name, a new season, and a brand new arc that continues the story of Cloud, Muse, Drogon, and Glitterbomb. You don't want to miss it. Until then, thank you very much. Happy gaming. Be good to one another. And we'll see you right here tomorrow morning as the new morning schedule continues or resumes on Baz and Bigley. Until then, have a great night. Adventure safely. Peace out.
Y'all.